What if the secret to ridiculously consistent business growth isn't, about acquiring new customers at all, but fundamentally shifting your entire business model to guarantee the success of the customers you already have?
I mean, that just totally flips the script, doesn't it?
Yeah.
On how modern companies operate, I mean.
Right.
We're so conditioned to obsess over, like, customer acquisition costs, and we're constantly hunting for the next lead. We entirely miss the exponential growth sitting literally right in front of us.
Yeah.
If you actually engineer your business around making your existing buyers undeniably successful, well, the traditional metrics, acquisition, churn, lifetime value, they just start taking care of themselves.
Yeah, and that is the exact paradigm shift we are unpacking in today's deep dive. So welcome, everyone. We are looking at the foundational concepts from John Yench's book, The Ultimate Marketing Engine. Specifically, we're zeroing in on the prologue, which is titled Some Meaningful Way, and Chapter 1, Tune the Engine.
Yeah, step zero, basically.
Exactly. And for anyone navigating entrepreneurship, scaling a business, or honestly just trying to survive the current economic turbulence we're all seeing, this framework is a huge wake-up call. We're going to explore how to become so deeply meaningful to your customers that you essentially render your competition completely irrelevant.
Which is the dream, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we'll get into how to scale sustainably by growing with your clients instead of just extracting profit from them.
You know, the word extraction is really the operative word there.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at the standard marketing playbook for the last 20 years, it has functioned almost exclusively as an extraction process.
Yeah, extract as much as possible.
Right. You run ads to extract attention, you build a landing page to extract an email address, you create a funnel to extract a credit card number. But this source material is asking us to stop extracting and start injecting.
Injecting success.
Yes, injecting tangible value directly into the lives and businesses of a very specific ideal customer.
So let's get right into the core tension the prologue sets up, because it really establishes the stakes for everything we're about to discuss today. The author points out something that seems, obvious in retrospect, but gets totally forgotten when times are good.
Oh, for sure. Everyone feels like a genius in a bull market.
Exactly. In a booming economy, a lot of businesses grow purely by accident. They are just in the right place at the right time. Capital is cheap, consumer spending is high, the tide is rising, so, all the boats go up. But the moment the economy contracts, when times get genuinely tough, growth and even basic survival only come to businesses that are, quote, important in some meaningful way to their customers.
And that phrase, important in some meaningful way, it's the absolute anchor for this entire philosophy. Because think about it. When capital dries up, consumers and B2B clients immediately audit their expenses.
They pull out the bank statements with a red pen.
Right. They look at their credit card statements and their vendor lists, and they start slashing everything that feels like a commodity. If you are just a vendor selling a widget, well, you get cut.
You're gone.
You're gone. But if you have positioned yourself as important in a meaningful way, meaning their own operations or their own lives would be measurably diminished without you, you survive the cut. Good marketing, therefore, isn't about spamming people with discount codes when times get tough. It's about doing the hard, operationally complex, right thing from the customer's point of view day in and day out.
And to really drive this home, the source material gives us a high-stakes, incredibly vivid real-world scenario. It's the story of a guy named Charlie who owns a home remodeling business in the Midwest.
A great story.
It really is. And to understand the weight of what Charlie did, we have to transport ourselves back to a very specific, visceral moment in recent history. Mid-March 2020.
Ah, yeah, the week the world just stopped spinning.
I mean, literally, let's paint the picture for you listening because context is everything here. The World Health Organization has just officially declared a global pandemic. The NBA has completely paused its season out of nowhere.
I remember exactly where I was when that notification popped up.
Right. It was surreal. Tom Hanks just announced he tested positive for the virus, which suddenly made it real for millions of people. The Dow Jones plunged 1,465 points in a single afternoon. And locally for Charlie, the mayor of Kansas City just issued a strict shelter-in-place order. The panic is just absolute.
Yeah, you really have to put yourself in the shoes of a small business owner in that precise 48-hour window. The level of macroeconomic shock was completely unprecedented. You have zero forward visibility. Supply chains are freezing, stock markets are melting down, and nobody knows if we are facing a 2-week lockdown or like a 2-year depression.
Exactly.
Millions of businesses were staring into that exact same abyss at that exact moment, trying to figure out how to just survive the month.
So picture this. It's 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on a Wednesday. Charlie texts a draft of an email to his business advisor. He's drafting one message to his active clients and a slightly different version to his 50 employees. And his decision is wildly drastic.
It really was.
He is proactively shutting down all active remodeling projects immediately. He's doing this to follow precautionary health measures, to protect his crews from going into people's homes, and to protect his clients from exposure. And he is doing this despite the massive, potentially ruinous financial risk this poses to his company.
And what's crucial to understand about Charlie's decision here is that it wasn't a legal requirement at that exact hour.
That's a great point. He jumped the gun in a good way.
Right. He didn't wait for a mandate that explicitly forced the construction or remodeling industry to put down their hammers. He looked at the rapidly deteriorating situation, looked at the vulnerability of his customers, looked at his 50 employees who rely on him for their livelihood, and decided to voluntarily halt his own revenue engine.
Okay, I have to jump in here and play the role of the highly skeptical founder for a second.
Let's hear it.
I understand the moral high ground, I really do. But let's talk about the cold, hard mechanics of business. How is shutting down your sales and your daily operations a marketing move? Like if I'm a founder staring at payroll for 50 people, telling my clients we're stopping work sounds like corporate suicide.
Yeah, sounds crazy.
It feels like a pilot deliberately turning off the engines to save fuel while the plane is actively falling out of the sky. How do you pay your staff with meaning?
That is the exact right question to ask, honestly, because it highlights the fundamental misunderstanding of what marketing actually is in the modern era. If you view marketing strictly as sales promotion, as the act of convincing someone to give you money today, then yes, Charlie's move looks like absolute suicide.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if we define marketing as the continuous communication and demonstration of value, it makes perfect sense. The author actually quotes a lyric from the band The Fray to illustrate this. Sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same.
See, I hear a pop song lyric in a business book, and my immediate reaction is, well, that's nice, but that doesn't balance a spreadsheet, you know? How does taking a massive financial hit actually work as a marketing mechanism? Let's break down the actual operational reality of what Charlie did.
Fair enough, fair enough.
Yeah.
Let's look at the mechanics of the pause itself. Think about the influx of emails every consumer received that week in March 2020.
Oh, man, the inbox flood.
Every faceless corporation, every airline you flew once 5 years ago sent out a spammy, generic, legally vetted PR blast saying, "In these uncertain times, your safety is our top priority."
While simultaneously doing everything in their power to prevent you from getting a refund.
Exactly. They were trying to protect their cash flow under the guise of caring. The psychological impact of those emails was zero or even negative. Consumers saw right through it.
Right. It was just noise. It felt manipulative.
It did. Now, contrast that with Charlie. He didn't just send a PR statement. He took a concrete operational action that actively hurt his own accounts receivable in order to protect the physical safety of his clients' families. The mechanism of his survival wasn't magic. It was the fact that he didn't cancel the contracts. He paused them.
Pause them. That's the key.
Right. He communicated, "I am willing to take the financial blow to ensure nobody brings a virus into your living room." By prioritizing the client's safety over his own revenue, he demonstrated irreplaceable value. He proved he was an active partner in their well-being, not just a contractor trying to extract a final payment.
You know, the source material uses a really grounded analogy for this kind of value. It talks about the local bakery. The local bakery is important to a neighborhood not just because it exchanges currency for carbohydrates.
Right.
It provides warmth, the smell of baking bread, a sense of community routine. Or think of a trusted local accountant during tax season. They are important because only they can look at a messy pile of financial numbers, interpret the chaos, and look their client in the eye to reassure them that things are going to be okay.
Those are perfect examples because they illustrate the difference between a simple transaction and an actual relationship. The bakery and the accountant provide emotional and practical stability. Charlie provided stability during a massive crisis. A business becomes truly important when a customer realizes, wow, if this business ceased to exist, my life or my community or my peace of mind would be tangibly diminished.
And the mechanical result for Charlie was just astounding, because when he actually hit send on that email on Monday morning, the replies don't just trickle in, they completely flood his inbox.
I bet.
His employees fully support the move, which builds immense internal culture and loyalty, but the customers, overwhelming, unconditional support. Not a single active remodeling project was canceled. They were simply frozen in place.
That's incredible.
And when the freeze finally thawed and people felt safe again, that backlog of fiercely loyal customers who stuck by him didn't just save the business from bankruptcy, it provided the foundation for massive growth. Because those clients went out and told everyone they knew about the contractor who put people over profit. That is a 0% churn rate during a black swan economic event.
Which brings us to a highly practical, albeit slightly uncomfortable takeaway for you listening right now. You have to stop taking your current customers for granted, and you need to audit your operational decisions through this lens. Ask yourself this very sobering question. If my business disappeared tomorrow, would my customers' lives be meaningfully diminished?
That is a brutal mirror to hold up.
It is.
If you are honest with yourself and the answer is, well, no, if we vanished, our clients would just open a new tab on their browser, Google our competitor, and buy the exact same widget for the exact same price, then you haven't achieved meaningful status yet. You are highly replaceable.
Precisely. To become irreplaceable, you have to act in ways that prove your relevance beyond the mere transaction. Charlie proved his relevance by protecting his customers' health over his own wallet. Obviously, you aren't always going to be operating in a global pandemic, so you have to find what that equivalent is for your specific industry. How can you demonstrate that you are invested in their ultimate well-being, even when it costs you something in the short term?
Which is the perfect bridge into our next major concept. If the goal is to systematically become that irreplaceable, you can't just wait for a crisis to prove your worth.
No, you definitely can't.
You have to fundamentally redesign what your business is built to do from the ground up.
And this brings us right to the title of the book itself and key idea number 2, redefining the core purpose of a business.
Chapter 1 introduces this titular concept, the ultimate marketing engine. And I appreciate that the source material immediately clarifies what this engine is not. It's not a new CRM software. It's not a slick, highly optimized sales funnel. It's not a viral social media strategy or some clever SEO hack. The ultimate marketing engine, according to this framework, is a successful customer.
You know, when you first hear that, a successful customer, it sounds almost a bit cliche.
Yeah, a little cheesy.
Right. It sounds like something you'd read on an inspirational poster in a corporate break room or something. But operationally, it is a radical departure from conventional business wisdom. Think about what we are usually taught. Most marketing books, business schools, and frankly, a lot of standard corporate advice teach that the purpose of a business is to profitably acquire and retain customers.
The classic loop. Acquire, retain, monetize. Measure your customer acquisition cost, try to keep your churn rate low, and maximize the lifetime value.
Exactly. That is the traditional math of business.
Yeah.
But this source material argues that operating solely on that view is incredibly limiting. And ultimately, it's exhausting to sustain. Think about the underlying psychology of the acquire and retain model. Your focus is entirely inward.
Right.
The goal is your success. The goal is to keep them paying you for as long as possible. The author argues that the true purpose of a business isn't to acquire and retain. It is to discover what makes your customer successful and then align every single department, product, and process around achieving that singular goal.
Let's ground this in a real-world analogy, because the difference between retaining a customer and making them successful can feel a bit semantic until you see it in practice. It makes me think of the fundamental difference between a big box corporate gym and a dedicated high-end personal trainer.
Oh, that's a really good comparison. Let's play that out. How do their models differ?
So, if you look at a massive big box gym, their entire business model is based on what the industry literally calls breakage.
Breakage, yeah.
They aggressively market to acquire you in January. They get you to sign a contract, collect your $29 a month, and from that point on, they are essentially hoping you don't show up. If all 10,000 members actually showed up on a Tuesday evening, the facility would collapse. They don't have enough treadmills, they don't have enough locker room space. Their profitability relies on your apathy. They are growing from you. They are extracting a fee while hoping you fail to utilize the service.
It's a model built on passive extraction.
Exactly. Now contrast that with a great personal trainer. If you hire a trainer for a premium fee, they cannot rely on breakage. Their entire business model relies on active transformation. If you don't show up, they call you. They track your macros, they correct your form, they push you, they actively ensure you lose the weight, get strong, and hit the goals you set. They are growing with you because once they make you genuinely successful, you will never leave them, and more importantly, you will become a walking billboard who inevitably brings them 3 new clients.
That analogy perfectly encapsulates the shift. The gym is managing retention through contractual friction. The personal trainer is managing success through transformation. And if we look closely at the text, the author uses this exact philosophy to push back against one of the oldest, most tired maxims in business. The customer is king.
The idea that the customer is always right, which anyone who has ever worked a day of customer service knows is absolutely
Oh,
false.
completely. Not only is it false, but it's detrimental to both the business and the customer. The source material reframes this beautifully. It is not the customer that is king, it is the growth of the customer that is king.
The growth is king.
Yes. If the customer comes to the personal trainer and says, I want to eat donuts every day, the customer is not right. The trainer has to say no because eating donuts actively works against the customer's growth. When your entire business model is built on ensuring their transformation, you have to be willing to lead them, even when it involves friction. And when you do that successfully, revenue growth isn't something you have to force through aggressive sales tactics. It happens organically, as a natural byproduct of the success you are injecting into the market.
So how do we make this actionable? For you listening, the practical takeaway here requires a fundamental shift in how you run your internal metrics. Think about your typical Monday morning executive or team meeting. Usually, the first question everyone asks is, how many new customers did we acquire last week? Or, what's our current MRR, our monthly recurring revenue? You need to shift that primary business metric. You need to build operational systems to measure how successful did we make our customers this week.
Operationally, this is where companies like Modern Software as a Service, or SaaS, businesses have really paved the way. They pioneered the role of the customer success manager, which is distinctly different from customer support.
Right, support versus success.
Exactly. Customer support is reactive. A customer submits a ticket because something is broken, and support fixes it. Customer success is proactive. They look at the data and say, hey, this client hasn't utilized feature X yet. If they don't use feature X, they won't get the full ROI, and they will likely churn in 6 months. Let's get on a call and train their team. If you change what you measure, you change the behavior of your entire organization. If you measure customer success, you will manage your business to produce customer success, because your business succeeds only when your customer succeeds.
But if we take this philosophy seriously, that our engine runs exclusively on successful customers, we immediately run headfirst into a very hard, mathematically undeniable truth. And this brings us to key idea 3, the myth of the universal customer.
This is where the rubber really meets the road. And it requires a level of discipline most businesses simply do not have. It's the realization that not everyone is ideal.
The source material is remarkably blunt about this. You simply cannot make every customer successful. Even if you have the most incredible life-changing product in the world and you truly believe in your heart that every human being on the planet desperately needs it, you cannot serve everyone. To build the ultimate marketing engine, you must restrict your focus strictly to what the text calls ideal customers.
What's fascinating here is how clinically the text defines the word ideal. In a lot of businesses, ideal just means someone who has a pulse, an email address, and a valid credit card.
Literally anyone who will pay.
Anyone. But the author argues that an ideal customer must meet a very stringent set of criteria. The text lays out 7 specific alignment points, and missing even one of these points can turn a profitable relationship into a massive operational drain.
Let's not just list these. Let's really unpack the psychology and the mechanics behind each of these 7 traits. Let's use a hypothetical B2B software consulting firm as our example to test these out. First, the text says the ideal customer must have the right set of problems.
Meaning the highly specific problem that your business is uniquely optimized to solve. If your consulting firm specializes in migrating legacy on-premise databases to the cloud for healthcare companies, that is the exact problem you want. If a retail company comes to you asking for help building a mobile app, they have a problem. And they might even have money, but they don't have the right problem. Taking them on will force your team to learn on the fly, reducing efficiency and almost guaranteeing a mediocre result.
Okay, second on the list. They must have the right circumstances.
This is about timing and priority. Are they in a position where solving this problem is a top-tier organizational priority? Or is it a back burner issue? If the CEO is forcing the cloud migration, but the IT department is actively fighting it because they are currently undergoing a massive merger, the circumstances are wrong. No matter how good your consulting is, the internal chaos will derail the project and your firm will likely take the blame.
That makes sense. Okay, the third criteria is that they must have the right characteristics. And earlier, when we were prepping for this deep dive, you used a word I want to clarify, firmographics. I think most people know what demographics are, but what does firmographics actually look like in practice?
Yeah, so demographics apply to individuals, right? Age, income, zip code. Firmographics are the equivalent for businesses. What is their annual revenue? How many employees do they have? What is their current tech stack? What is their geographic footprint?
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so if your ideal process requires a point of contact who is a dedicated CTO, but you take on a small business where the CEO is also playing the role of the IT guy, the firmographics are a mismatch. The engagement will fail because they lack the internal infrastructure to support your solution.
That makes total sense. Fourth on the list, they need the right motivation.
This comes back to the personal trainer analogy. They have to actually want to undergo the transformation. You cannot force success on someone who is apathetic. If they are only buying your service to check a compliance box, but they have no intention of actually adopting the new systems, the project will stall. You need a champion inside the client's organization who's highly motivated to see the finish line.
Fifth criteria, the right beliefs.
This is where a lot of friction happens in B2B relationships. They have to value what you value. If your firm deeply values long-term, sustainable, secure architecture and the client fundamentally believes in cutting corners for a cheap, quick duct tape fix, the relationship is doomed from day one. Every single strategic recommendation you make will be a battle over core values.
Sounds exhausting. Sixth is the right behavior.
This is entirely about how they treat your team and how they communicate. Do they respond to emails in a timely manner? Do they follow through on their deliverables? And most importantly, do they treat your employees with professional respect? A client who screams at your project managers might be paying their invoices, but their bad behavior will burn out your staff, causing your best employees to quit. The hidden cost of bad behavior is massive.
And finally, the seventh criteria, the right amount of money.
Simply put, they must be able to easily afford the true, fully loaded cost of the value you are providing. If taking on your services causes them severe financial distress, every single interaction will be strained. They will constantly haggle, they will challenge every line item on the invoice, and they will expect a 10x return immediately to justify the expense. You want clients who view your fee as a standard investment, not an existential gamble.
Okay, looking at those 7 criteria, problem, circumstances, characteristics, motivation, beliefs, behavior, and money. It becomes painfully obvious how incredibly narrow that filter is. Very few people actually fit the bill. And this leads to a very real, very visceral pushback. Let's say you are a relatively new business, or maybe a mature business going through a brutally lean quarter. When you are just trying to keep the lights on and make payroll, turning away a paying customer because they don't fit all 7 of those ideal criteria feels terrifying. It feels irresponsible. How do we rationally justify turning away cash in hand?
It is terrifying, absolutely. And it runs counter to every survival instinct an entrepreneur has. But to justify it, we have to look past the short-term cash injection and examine the stark statistics the test provides regarding the mechanics of business failure. The author points out that according to the U.S. Small Business Administration, roughly 627,000 new businesses open in the U.S. each year. And in that same exact time period, about 595,000 businesses close.
Let's just pause on that. That failure rate is absolutely massive. But let's unpack why they close. It's not usually just a matter of running out of money out of nowhere. It's how they run out of money. It's the slow bleed.
Exactly. Death by 1,000 non-ideal customers. Trying to serve everyone is a primary driver of that failure rate because it dilutes your operational focus. When you take on that non-ideal client, the one with the wrong problem, the bad behavior, and not quite enough money, what actually happens? They demand endless out-of-scope revisions because they don't understand the process. They refuse to use your project management software, demanding you text them updates instead. They burn through hundreds of hours of your customer support team's time.
So the margins on that client rapidly drop to 0 or even go negative. You are effectively paying for the privilege of serving a bad client.
Precisely. And worse, while your team is exhausted dealing with the bad client, you are ignoring your truly ideal clients, who eventually get frustrated with the dip in quality and leave. When you try to be everything to everyone, you end up being nothing to anyone. The text explicitly compares operating without a strict ideal customer strategy to cruising down the highway in a car without a working gas gauge.
You're moving fast, you feel like you're making progress, but you have no idea when the engine is just going to stall out completely.
And you are entirely at the mercy of the road. This is why the author explicitly warns against falling for the marketing tactic of the week. You see businesses constantly chasing whatever is trending, the latest TikTok dance, the emoji du jour, a new growth hacking script. Tactics are completely fine, but if you deploy them without having rigorously defined what a right customer is, you are just burning fuel to attract more chaos into your ecosystem. By defining what right means across all 7 criteria, you are making a highly specific promise to solve a highly specific problem brilliantly. That hyper-focus is the only way you can consistently take customers from where they are right now to exactly where they want to be.
So the operational takeaway for you listening is this. You have to become absolutely ruthless about who you let into your business ecosystem. You need to identify the precise characteristics of the customers you can actually help the most, the ones you can guarantee success for. And then, and this is the hard part, you have to design your marketing not just to attract them, but to intentionally and actively weed out everyone else.
That weeding out process is crucial, and it requires designing friction into your systems. You want to actively repel the non-ideal prospects before they even get on a discovery call with your sales team.
How does a business actually do that? How do you weed people out gracefully but firmly?
You do it through pricing, positioning, and qualification hurdles. For example, explicitly stating your minimum engagement fee right on your website. If a prospect doesn't have the right amount of money, you save everyone time by letting them self-disqualify instantly. Or you use your marketing copy to clearly state who the product is not for. This software requires an in-house developer to implement. If you do not have a dedicated dev team, this is not the right tool for you.
Because if you let a non-ideal customer in, they won't achieve success anyway. They will drain your resources, frustrate your team, fail to get the ROI, and eventually leave, likely leaving a scathing 1-star review on their way out, which damages your ability to attract the right customers.
Exactly. A failed customer is sand in the gears of the ultimate marketing engine. You have to keep the sand out.
Okay, this brings us to a major pivot point in our deep dive. If we have fully committed to this mindset, we want to be deeply meaningful like Charlie. We want to focus entirely on measuring customer success like the personal trainer. And we are willing to ruthlessly filter out anyone who isn't a perfect 7-point ideal fit. How do we actually build the operational machinery to make this happen? This brings us to key idea 4, the 5-step roadmap to predictable growth.
Yes, the end of Chapter 1 provides this overarching blueprint. It lays out 5 progressive sequential steps that dictate the framework for the rest of the author's methodology. We shouldn't rush through these because each step represents a profound philosophical and operational shift.
Let's walk through these 5 steps progressively. Step 1 is map. The directive is to map out where your best customers are today and where they ultimately want to go. And within this step, the text introduces a really compelling concept called customers as members. What does that mean operationally?
It's about shifting the psychological dynamic of the relationship. Most businesses treat their buyers transactionally. You buy a pair of shoes, you are a customer. The transaction is over until you need shoes again. But think about the psychology of being a member of something, whether it's a country club, a professional association, or even a premium loyalty program. When you are a member, there is a mutual expectation of ongoing value, continuous communication, and long-term investment. Step 1 is about charting out a continuous multi-year success track. You aren't just selling them the shoes, you are mapping out their journey to running a marathon and figuring out every piece of support they need along that path.
Step 2 is uncover. You have to uncover the real problem you solve for your ideal customers. And I want to spend a minute here because this sounds incredibly obvious, but it is notoriously difficult for founders to actually do.
It is arguably the hardest step for a founder because it requires them to overcome their own bias. Most business owners are deeply, passionately obsessed with their own products. They love their own features, their own proprietary technology, the clever design of their packaging. But customers do not care about your features. They don't buy products just because they want to own a thing. They buy products because they believe the product is the vehicle that will deliver them from a current state of pain to a future state of relief.
This reminds me of the classic marketing metaphor that gets passed around. People don't want to buy a 1/4-inch drill bit. They want a 1/4-inch hole in the wall.
It's a classic for a reason. But step 2 requires you to go even deeper than the hole in the wall. Why do they want the whole? Because they want to hang a picture of their family. Why do they want to hang the picture? Because they want their new, sterile apartment to feel like a warm, inviting home. The real problem you are solving isn't the lack of a power tool. You are solving the emotional desire for a sense of belonging and comfort. If you're just selling the RPM speed of your drill motor, you are totally missing the customer's actual transformation. You have to figure out what that underlying, often emotional desire is.
Step 3 is narrow. The mandate here is to narrow your focus to the top 20% of your ideal customers. We touched on this with the myth of the universal customer, but let's look at the math behind this. This is essentially the Pareto principle in action, right? The 80-20 rule.
Exactly. In almost every business, if you do a rigorous cohort analysis of your database, you will find that roughly 80% of your profit, 80% of your joy, and 80% of your successful case studies come from just 20% of your client base. Conversely, 80% of your headaches, support tickets, and late payments come from the bottom 20%. Step 3 is the highly disciplined, often terrifying act of looking at the data, identifying the top 20% who fit all 7 ideal criteria, and actively deciding to cut away the bottom 80% of distractions. It requires you to accept that there are plenty of ideal customers out there in the market. You don't need all of them. You just need a critical mass of the right ones.
Step 4 is attract. But the specific phrasing here is key. Attract more ideal customers using the narrative they are already telling themselves.
Once you have executed steps 1, 2, and 3, you know their long-term journey, you understand their deep emotional problem, and you have narrowed your focus to a highly specific avatar. Marketing stops feeling like a guessing game. You don't have to invent a clever Madison Avenue-style slogan. You just listen. You use the exact words, the exact frustrations, and the exact aspirations they use in their own internal monologue. You attract them by proving to them that you understand their story and their pain better than anyone else in the market. When a prospect reads a piece of your marketing and thinks, wow, it feels like they are reading my diary, you have successfully executed step 4.
And finally, step 5 is scale. But again, the phrasing is critical. It's not just scale your revenue, it's scale with your customers by serving their entire ecosystem.
This is the holy grail of sustainable compounding growth. When you execute the first 4 steps perfectly, expansion doesn't require launching a completely unrelated product line or scrambling to find desperate new sales channels. You scale organically by looking at your highly successful members and asking, now that we have solved problem A and they have reached a new level of success, what is problem B?
Because new success breeds new problems. If my personal trainer successfully helps me lose 50 pounds, my new problem is that none of my clothes fit, and I want to run a 10K, but I don't know how to train for endurance.
Precisely. So the trainer scales with you by partnering with a nutritionist or offering a specialized running program. They expand their value to serve your expanding ecosystem. Scaling with the customer requires immense operational flexibility because you have to be willing to evolve your offerings as your clients evolve.
Out of all these 5 steps, map, uncover, narrow, attract, scale, which one do you see businesses routinely skipping or failing at the most? Where is the hidden trapdoor?
In my experience analyzing these frameworks and looking at companies trying to implement them, it's almost always step 2 and step 5 that cause the most spectacular failures.
Uncovering the real problem and scaling with the ecosystem, let's dig into why those 2 are the usual culprits.
Well, regarding step 2, as we discussed, overcoming founder bias is incredibly difficult. But there's another layer. Uncovering the real problem requires talking to your customers in a way that most companies simply don't do. It requires deep, qualitative, empathetic interviews, not just sending out a multiple-choice survey on SurveyMonkey. Most companies are terrified to get on the phone and ask open-ended questions about their customers' fears and desires,
Right.
so they skip it and just guess.
And regarding step 5, why is scaling with the ecosystem so hard?
Because it disrupts internal processes. Many companies build a rigid, highly optimized product, and they build their entire corporate identity around that one product. They become the drill bit company. If the customer's ecosystem evolves and they suddenly need a laser level, the company refuses to adapt, insisting that everyone just needs more drill bits. To scale with a customer, you have to untether your identity from your specific product and re-anchor it to the customer's ongoing success.
So your practical, actionable takeaway for this section is to treat these 5 steps as an immediate diagnostic tool for your own operation. Take a mental screenshot of this sequence. Map, uncover, narrow, attract, scale. Look honestly at your business this week. Which of those steps are you currently skipping? Are you terrified of firing the bad client, so you're failing to narrow? Are you obsessed with your own software features so you are failing to uncover the emotional problem? Whichever step you are ignoring, make that your absolute operational priority to fix for the next quarter.
It is a phenomenal diagnostic because if you feel like your marketing installed, if your CAC is going up and your lifetime value is going down, it is almost certainly because one of these 5 specific links in the chain is broken.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today, moving from the macro philosophy of crisis survival all the way down to the micromechanics of customer qualification. Let's synthesize everything we've unpacked from the prologue and chapter 1.
If we distill all of this down to its absolute essence, the ultimate takeaway is a profound structural inversion of traditional business logic.
The traditional extraction-based logic says your business exists to extract value from the market. You identify a demographic with disposable income, you target them relentlessly, you extract their money, and you try to keep them on the hook as long as possible.
But the ultimate marketing engine logic demands a complete posture change. It says your business does not exact to extract. It exists to inject success into a highly specific, rigorously filtered group of ideal customers. You are no longer a hunter out looking for a kill. You are a cultivator building an ecosystem. By aligning every department, every metric, and every operation around physically transforming your customers, you naturally make all of your competition irrelevant.
Because at that point, you aren't competing on a spreadsheet anymore. You aren't competing on who has the cheapest price or who has one extra software feature. You are competing on who is most deeply committed to the customer's actual tangible success.
And the market data shows that when a customer finds a business that is genuinely, structurally committed to their growth, they become price insensitive, they refer their network, and they never leave.
Which brings us full circle, right back to the very beginning of our discussion, to Charlie's remodeling business during the sheer panic of the pandemic. He didn't send a marketing brochure. He proved he cared about their success, their physical health, their family's safety, more than he cared about his own short-term revenue. He injected value when they needed it most. And the loyalty that generated saved his company.
It is the ultimate proof of concept for the entire framework.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought to mull over today as you look at your own operations. I want you to think about your absolute favorite local business, the one you actively recommend to everyone who moves to town, the one you actually enjoy giving your money to, even if they are a little more expensive than Amazon or the big box store down the street. If their doors closed permanently tomorrow, what invisible, unquantifiable value would you personally lose?
It's a great exercise because the answer is almost never just the product itself.
Exactly. Maybe it's the fact that they know your name and your order before you reach the counter. Maybe it's the profound reassurance they provide when you bring them a complex problem. Maybe it's the community they actively foster. Figure out what that specific invisible magic is. Once you can articulate the mechanics of that magic, you have just identified the exact fuel required to run an ultimate marketing engine. The question now is, how do you systematically generate that exact same magic in your own business?
That's the multi-million-dollar question. It's the difference between a business that merely survives and one that dominates.
And it's a question we are going to keep exploring in depth. Because now that you understand that your engine must run purely on customer success and that you have to be ruthless about who you let in, how exactly do you execute step 1? How do you actually map out the long-term journey they want to take and transition them from treating you like a vendor to treating you like a vital membership? Keep that puzzle in your mind because in our next deep dive, we are going to meticulously uncover the operational secrets of step 1 and the psychology of the customer as member mindset. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next deep dive. So every single year in the United States, about 627,000 new businesses just open their doors.
That's a massive number.
It is. I mean, think about it. Founders are signing leases, they're, launching websites, hiring teams. They put their entire life savings on the line.
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge leap of faith.
Right. But here is the crazy part. In that exact same 12-month period, about 595,000 businesses closed those doors for good.
Wow. Yeah, the failure rate is it's staggering.
It's completely staggering. And if you were to ask, 100 business professors what the fatal flaw is, they almost always point to the exact same thing.
Which is a failure to acquire customers.
Exactly. But what if everything we've been taught about the phrase, the customer is king, is just completely wrong? What if the very concept of acquiring a customer is the actual poison killing these companies?
That is a fascinating way to frame it.
Yep.
Because it really challenges the standard narrative.
Yeah. So today, in this deep dive, we are looking at a framework from our source material that suggests something radical. It suggests the fastest growing, most indestructible companies in the world don't actually care about acquiring you.
Right. They care about transforming you.
Exactly. So we are digging into Chapter 2, specifically Step 0, Tune the Engine, to figure out why shifting your focus from your own revenue to your customer's literal success is the ultimate shortcut to making competition irrelevant.
It completely flips the traditional Silicon Valley playbook right on its head.
Yeah.
I mean, we have all been conditioned to view the customer as basically a resource to be harvested.
Like timber or something.
Right. You figure out your customer acquisition cost, your CAC, and you balance it against their lifetime value, the LTV. And if your LTV is higher than your CAC, congratulations, you have a business.
But the material we are analyzing today argues that treating a human being as just like a mathematical unit of fuel for your revenue engine, it's brittle. It's an unsustainable way to build a company.
It's incredibly brittle. Because if they are the fuel, that means you are just burning them up to propel yourself forward.
Which brings us to the core of what we're going to unpack today. This is step 0 in building a totally different kind of business architecture.
The foundational shift.
Yeah. Whether you are bootstrapping a side hustle in your garage or, you're a director at a Fortune 500 company trying to stop a massive churn crisis, this mindset shift matters for absolutely anyone in business.
It really is the bedrock. Because if you build a brilliant marketing funnel on top of a purely transactional mindset, I mean, all you've really done is build a highly efficient machine for disappointing people at scale.
I love that phrase. A machine for disappointing people at scale. So let's start right there with this idea of redefining the engine and the actual purpose of a company.
Let's do it.
Because if I go to business school right now, or if I just read standard growth marketing blogs, the goal is pretty straightforward. You build a machine, pour capital into top-of-funnel ads.
Capture the leads.
Right. Capture leads, convert them into buyers, and then you just set up a customer success team whose only real job is to, keep them from canceling their subscription so we can hit our quarterly targets.
Yeah, and let's look at the psychology behind that traditional model. Every single metric on the executive dashboard is entirely self-centered.
How so?
Well, think about it. It is all about what the customer is doing for the business. Like, how much did it cost us to get them? How much revenue are they generating for us? What is our retention rate?
Oh, I see. It's a one-way street.
Exactly. The business acts like it's the center of the universe, and customers are just these orbiting satellites providing resources.
So what's the alternative then? Because the text posits something radically different. It says that the ultimate marketing engine for a business isn't a clever ad campaign.
No, it's not.
And it isn't an aggressive sales team. The engine is, quite simply, a successful customer.
A successful customer. I want to pause on that because, it sounds a bit like a motivational poster you'd see in a corporate break room.
Right, like teamwork makes the dream work.
Exactly. But in this framework, it is actually a rigorous structural definition. The purpose of a business is not to make a product and find people to buy it.
Okay, then what is it?
The purpose is to discover precisely what it takes to make a specific type of person successful, and then concentrate 100% of the company's resources on guaranteeing that outcome.
Meaning growth doesn't come from your customers.
Right. It happens with them.
There's this quote in the text from Ralph Waldo Emerson that I think anchors this perfectly. He said, all the tools and engines on earth are only extensions of man's limbs and senses.
That is profound when you apply it to commerce. I mean, think about what a tool actually is.
Like a hammer.
Yeah, or a telescope. A telescope is just an extension of the human eye, right? It allows it to see further. A bicycle is an extension of human legs, allowing them to move faster with less energy.
Right.
The tool has no intrinsic value in isolation. It only has value in how it amplifies the human using it.
So the business itself, the product, the service, the software you're selling is just the bicycle.
Precisely. If your business is the engine, it shouldn't exist just to sit there and generate money for itself. It must exist as a functional extension of your customers' capabilities.
It has to help them achieve an outcome they couldn't achieve on their own.
Exactly. And that word successful is the metric. You can't just sell someone a high-end drill, recognize the revenue, and, pop champagne.
Right, because they might not even know how to use the drill.
Exactly. You have to structurally care whether or not they successfully built the beautiful oak bookshelf they bought the drill for. If they didn't, your tool failed. It doesn't matter if their credit card cleared.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here because I can hear founders screaming at their speakers right now?
I'm sure they are.
I mean, if I'm running a startup, I have, what, 6 months of runway. I have payroll to meet on Friday. I've got angel investors who want to return, and AWS server bills climbing every month.
The pressure is real.
It's immense. I don't have the luxury of holding someone's hand while they build an oak bookshelf. I need cash flow. So how does focusing on their existential success rather than aggressively optimizing my sales funnel actually keep me from going bankrupt right now?
It is the most common pushback, and it comes from a place of very real survival panic. But the text argues it is a false dichotomy.
How so?
Well, no one is saying you shouldn't charge for your value or that you should operate as a charity. The argument is about causality and unit economics.
Hey, break that down for me. The unit economics of success.
Let's look at the alternative first. If you are desperate for cash and you focus entirely on extraction, you might optimize your ads and close a bunch of sales this month.
Ew, I made payroll.
Right, you made payroll. But because you aren't obsessing over whether they achieve their outcome building the bookshelf, what happens next month?
They realize the drill is too complicated.
Yes. Or they didn't get the right bits, or they lack the woodworking skills, they get frustrated, they churn, they demand refunds, they leave one-star reviews.
So now I have a leaky bucket.
Exactly. You have a massive hole in the bottom of your bucket. So next month, to meet payroll again, you have to spend even more money on acquisition just to replace the people you burned.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Your customer acquisition cost goes up because the market is saturated with your bad reviews. Your margins shrink. You're on a treadmill that keeps speeding up until you stumble and the business dies.
Which goes back to the SBA statistic. That is why 600,000 businesses fail. They die of exhaustion trying to outrun their own churn.
Exactly.
Okay, so contrast that with the success model. How does focusing on their success fix the runway problem?
When you engineer the business so that the customer fundamentally achieves their desired transformation, something magical happens to your unit economics.
What's that?
A transformed customer doesn't just quietly renew their contract. They become a rabid evangelist. They literally become your sales team.
But wait, evangelism takes time, doesn't it? Word of mouth can take years to build.
It takes less time than you think in a hyper-connected world. But more importantly, it drastically lowers your friction. Every time a successful customer brings you a new lead, your blended CAC drops.
Because you didn't have to pay for an ad to get them.
Exactly. And your sales cycle shortens because trust is already established by the referral. You don't have to discount your product to close the deal.
That makes total sense.
The revenue doesn't disappear. It actually multiplies. It becomes a high-margin, frictionless byproduct of the ecosystem you've built. Focusing on your own metrics is pushing a boulder up a hill. Focusing on their success reverses gravity. They pull you up the hill.
You know, it makes me think of building an exoskeleton.
An exoskeleton. Walk me through that analogy.
Well, think about the traditional acquisition model. It's like a business is building a giant mechanical fishing net.
Okay, a fishing net.
Yeah, you have a marketing team on the boat casting this heavy net out into the turbulent ocean of the market, just trying to drag as many thrashing, resisting people onto your deck as possible.
That sounds exhausting.
It takes massive energy. The net is always tearing. People are trying to escape. That is the C-key and LTV extraction model.
That is a great visual. And the success model.
In this new paradigm, you aren't building a net to trap them. You are building a robotic exoskeleton, a mechanical suit that just sits in the middle of the town square.
I like this.
You aren't forcing anyone into it. You are simply saying, hey, if you want to run 50 miles an hour and jump over buildings, step in. And when they willingly step in, the suit amplifies their strength.
It helps them reach their specific destination with vastly less effort.
Exactly. If you build a truly functional exoskeleton, you don't need a net. You need crowd control. People will be fighting each other to try it on.
I love that.
Yeah.
And your only job as the CEO is to keep upgrading the suit, to make sure the servos don't stick, to make sure the battery lasts longer, to ensure it actually gets them where they want to go.
Right, because if the suit works, the revenue is basically guaranteed.
Because the suit becomes indispensable to their life.
But this introduces a really uncomfortable problem, doesn't it? I mean, if we are acting as an exoskeleton for the customer, what happens when someone who is a size extra small tries to step into a size extra large suit?
Well, the suit breaks or the person gets hurt.
Right. Which brings up a really tough reality in this framework. The myth of the universal customer.
Cool, yes.
If the engine is a successful customer, we have to admit that we simply cannot make everyone successful.
You absolutely cannot. And trying to do so is the second biggest reason companies fail.
Let's dive into that. This idea that not every customer is your ideal customer. The framework is brutally explicit about this. It states that it does not matter if you, as the founder, firmly believe that every single person on planet Earth needs your product.
Founders definitely suffer from happy ears.
Happy ears.
Yeah, they fall in love with their product and they see the application for it everywhere. They think, well, everyone breathes air and everyone uses email, so everyone is my target market.
But they're not.
No, an ideal customer is not just someone with a pulse and a credit card. The definition in the text is highly constrained. An ideal customer must have the precise right set of problems, the right environmental circumstances, behavioral characteristics, internal motivation, belief system, and budget.
That is a long list of requirements.
It is. And if even one of those variables is off, they are not ideal. You cannot make them successful.
Let's give a concrete example of this because I want to ground this in reality. Let's talk about Superhuman, the email client.
That is the perfect example.
So Superhuman charges something like $30 a month for email. Now, everyone uses email. I use email. My grandmother uses email.
Right.
By traditional startup logic, Rahul Vora, the founder, should have run Facebook ads targeting literally everyone to pump up his user numbers for his investors. But he didn't do that at all.
He did the exact opposite. He made it incredibly hard to become a customer.
Right. If you wanted to pay him $30 a month, you actually had to fill out a survey first. And if you said in that survey that you mostly use email on your phone, or, you don't really care about keyboard shortcuts.
Or if you were using a PC at the time when they were Mac only.
Yes. He rejected you. He literally refused to take your money.
And why do you think he did that?
Because if someone who doesn't care about keyboard shortcuts pays $30 for a keyboard shortcut-heavy email app, they aren't going to experience a transformation.
Not all.
They're going to think, this is just Gmail, but confusing and expensive. They are the extra small person in the extra large exoskeleton.
Exactly. And let's look at the hidden costs of letting that non-ideal person in. This is where businesses just bleed out slowly.
Okay, yeah, let's play that out.
Let's say Superhuman took that person's money. Now that person is frustrated. So what do? They submit support tickets.
Oh.
Now Superhuman has to hire more customer service reps to handle the load of confused people who shouldn't even be using the product anyway.
It's draining resources.
Yes. Then this non-ideal customer starts demanding features, make it more like Gmail. And if the product team actually listens to them, they derail the entire product roadmap, ruining the software for the power users who actually love it.
Wow, yeah.
Finally, the non-ideal user churns anyway, and they go on Twitter and say, Superhuman is a scam, it's terrible.
So taking their $30 a month was actually a massive net negative.
It is a toxic injection into the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
A non-ideal customer actively drains resources that should have been spent upgrading the exoskeleton for the ideal customer.
That makes total sense.
When you take money from someone you cannot make successful, it is a short-term predatory loan with a massive interest rate paid in reputation, morale, and runway.
That is such a harsh truth. Taking their money is a short-term predatory loan. But again, the pressure to just take the cash when you're struggling is so high.
It goes entirely against our hunter-gatherer survival instincts to turn down resources. But you have to view it through the lens of the engine. Think of the analogy the author uses.
The core analogy.
Yeah. Operating without a strict customer success strategy, which implies knowing exactly who you can't help, is like cruising down the road in a car without a gas gauge and you have no idea where the next service station is located.
You're literally just waiting for the engine to sputter and die.
Right. You might be moving fast.
Yeah.
Maybe you hired a growth hacker and you're going 90 miles an hour acquiring users. But if they are the wrong users, you are burning fuel at an unsustainable rate, creating zero evangelism, and you will inevitably break down on the side of the highway.
That makes traditional tactics seem almost dangerous.
Tactics like the latest TikTok algorithm hack or a clever SEO play are just mechanisms for getting attention. But getting the attention of the wrong person is worse than having no attention at all. You've successfully marketed to a failure condition.
So for you, the listener, who might be auditing their business right now, this requires a profound level of discipline. Before we even get to the 5-step roadmap, you have to sit down and define your absolute non-negotiables.
You have to write down the definition of right.
Right. Not who can use your product, but who must use it. What is the specific pain they must be in? What is the budget they must have? What is the technical proficiency they must possess? Make a literal checklist.
And if prospect doesn't check every single box,
You have to be brave enough to say, we are not the right exoskeleton for you. We
yeah,
cannot guarantee your success, so we cannot take your money.
it is the single most terrifying thing a founder can do. And it is the single most profitable decision they will ever make. Because once you clear out the noise, you can focus entirely on the signal.
Which brings us perfectly to the blueprint. If we accept this tough reality that the engine is success and we can only focus on the success of a hyper-specific ideal customer, how do we actually engineer that?
How we build this soup.
Right, how do we build the suit? This framework provides a sequential 5-step roadmap to ridiculously consistent growth.
And the sequence here is absolutely critical. You cannot jump around.
Okay, let's go through them, and I want to use a running analogy to ground this. Let's imagine the business is a high-end personal trainer, not like a cheap $10 a month gym membership, but a world-class coach who transforms lives.
I like it. A personal trainer is a great proxy for an exoskeleton.
Okay, so step 1 in the framework is map. Map where your best customers are today and where they ultimately want to go.
Yeah.
This introduces the concept of shifting from buyers to members. It also introduces 2 major tools, the marketing hourglass and the customer success track.
Yes.
Let's break those down. Why do we have to map first?
Well, let's look at your personal trainer analogy. If you walk into a high-end trainer's gym, they don't immediately hand you a barbell and scream at you to do a squat. That's malpractice.
Right, but that's exactly what most businesses do. You land on their website and there's a giant pop-up that says, BUY now W 20% off F.
Exactly. It's aggressive, contextless extraction. Step 1. Map is about cartography. The trainer sits you down and establishes point A. They measure your body fat, your mobility, your resting heart rate, your dietary habits. Where are you currently standing?
You have to know where they are.
Then they establish point B. Where are we going? Are we training for the Olympics? Or are we trying to lower blood pressure so you can play with your kids? You cannot build a path if you don't know the origin and the destination.
And this requires treating them like members, right? What does that mean in this context?
Think about the word buyer. A buyer is someone who makes a transaction. I buy a candy bar at a gas station. The gas station doesn't care about my health goals. They just care that my dollar cleared.
Right.
But a member implies belonging. It implies an ongoing journey. When you view customers as members, you realize that the purchase is not the finish line. It is the starting line of the relationship.
So how does this marketing hourglass fit into the map? Because we all know the traditional marketing funnel. It's wide at the top, awareness, interest, consideration, and it gets super narrow at the bottom for the purchase. And then the funnel just, ends.
The funnel is fundamentally flawed because it implies gravity does all the work and it ends at the exact moment the customer actually gives you money. It assumes the goal is extraction. The marketing hourglass flips the funnel on its head after the purchase.
Walk me through the stages of the hourglass.
Sure. So the top half looks like a normal funnel. You have to guide a prospect through know, like, and trust. They become aware of you, they resonate with your philosophy, and they believe you can help them.
Okay.
Then they try your product, and finally, at the narrowest point of the hourglass, they buy. But in this framework, the hourglass widens back out at the bottom.
What are the bottom stages?
Repeat and refer. And the critical insight here is that you have to engineer the bottom of the hourglass with just as much intensity as the top.
But most companies don't do that, do they?
Not at all. Most companies spend millions on ads for the know, like, trust phases, and then they leave repeat and refer entirely up to chance. They just cross their fingers and hope the product is good enough that people talk about it.
Wow, yeah.
The hourglass demands that you intentionally map out the steps a user must take after buying to achieve the success that guarantees a referral.
And that's the customer success track.
Yes. It is a literal map. From day 1 to day 90. What email do they get on day 3? What milestone should they hit on day 14? If they haven't logged in by day 20, what intervention happens? You are mapping the precise breadcrumb trail to transformation.
That is brilliant. Okay, so our personal trainer has mapped our current health and our destination. We know the path. Now we move to step 2. Uncover. Uncover the real problem you solve.
This is huge.
The framework says that doing this is what makes competition entirely irrelevant.
Because you stop competing on features and start competing on understanding.
But how do you actually do that? How do you uncover a real problem? Because if I ask a customer what they want, they usually just give me a very superficial answer, like, I want a faster CRM, or I want to lose 10 pounds.
That is just the symptom. The real problem is the underlying disease. To uncover it, You have to use frameworks like the 5 Whys or Clayton Christensen's Jobs to be Done. You have to act like a detective.
Give me an example of that.
Let's use your trainer analogy again. A client walks in and says, I want to lose 15 pounds. The amateur trainer says, great, here is a calorie deficit plan. They treated the symptom.
Right.
But the high-end trainer asks, why do you want to lose 15 pounds? The client says, because I want to look better. Why do you want to look better? Because I have a high school reunion coming up. Why does that matter?
Yeah.
Because my ex-spouse is going to be there and my self-esteem took a massive hit in the divorce, and I need to prove to myself that I am still vibrant and capable of a new chapter in my life.
Whoa, okay, that went deep fast.
Exactly. The real problem isn't body fat. The real problem is a crisis of confidence and a need for emotional validation.
So if the trainer understands that, how does it make competition irrelevant?
Because every other trainer in town is running generic Facebook ads saying, get six-pack abs in 30 days. They are selling features.
Right, they're selling the drill.
Exactly. Our high-end trainer sits down with that client and says, we aren't just going to burn fat. We're going to rebuild your physical resilience so you can walk into any room in your life with unshakable confidence and own your next chapter. Which trainer is that client going to hire? Price becomes completely irrelevant.
Because they feel understood. It's like that old saying, when you can articulate a person's problem better than they can, they automatically assume you have the solution.
That is the golden rule of business. Uncovering the real problem is about finding the emotional driver behind the logical purchase. In B2B software, nobody buys a CRM because they love data entry.
No one loves data entry.
Right. They buy it because the VP of sales is terrified of missing their quota and getting fired, and they need a dashboard that gives them a sense of control over chaos. Sell control, not software.
Okay, so we've mapped the journey. We've uncovered the deep emotional problem. Step 3 is narrow. Narrow your focus to the top 20% of your ideal customers. We touched on this earlier with the superhuman example, but how does a business practically execute this step?
It's an aggressive application of the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. In almost every business, 80% of your revenue, 80% of your joy, and 80% of your referrals come from the top 20% of your client base.
These are the people who actually step into the exoskeleton and fly.
Exactly. Conversely, 80% of your support tickets, your headaches, and your churn come from the bottom 20%.
The people complaining that the suit is the wrong color.
Yes. So step 3 requires looking at your existing customer base, identifying that top 20%, analyzing exactly what traits they share, and then making the terrifying decision to build your entire company around them.
Wait, what does that mean for the other 80%?
It means you stop marketing to them. It means if they try to buy, you refer them to a competitor. In some cases, it means you literally fire them as clients.
Fire paying clients? Are you serious?
Yes. I'll give you a real-world agency example to show you how this works. Imagine a marketing agency doing $2 million a year in revenue. They are exhausted, margins are thin, and they have 40 clients.
Sounds stressful.
It is. They analyze their roster and realize 8 clients are generating almost all the profit, they never complain, and they trust the agency implicitly. The other 32 clients negotiate every invoice, demand daily meetings, and treat the agency like servants.
I know that agency. I think we all know an agency like that.
Right. So the agency makes the terrifying choice to fire the 32 bad clients. Their top-line revenue plummets temporarily. But suddenly, they have infinite free time.
Oh, I see where this is going.
They take all the resources they were wasting on the bottom feeders and hyper-invest it into the top 8. They map their success perfectly. Those 8 clients are so thrilled with the upgraded service, they refer the agency to other high-tier companies.
The evangelism kicks in.
Exactly. Within 18 months, the agency is doing $5 million a year with only 15 clients, and their profit margins have tripled. That is the power of narrowing.
That is incredible. You literally have to prune the tree for it to grow.
You do.
Okay, we map, uncover, narrow. Only now, at step 4, do we reach what most people consider traditional marketing. Step 4, attract. Attract more ideal customers using the narrative they are already telling themselves.
Notice how incredibly late in the game this happens.
Right. Most founders skip steps 1, 2, and 3 completely. They launch a product and immediately go to step 4. They start yelling into the void, buying Google ads, posting on LinkedIn, just trying to get attention.
And because they skip the foundational work, their marketing is completely generic. It says things like, we have great customer service and competitive pricing.
Yeah.
It's just noise.
It blends in with everyone else.
But if you have done the work, step 4 is practically effortless.
Because you aren't inventing a story, you are echoing their own internal monologue.
Exactly. You know their exact demographic and psychographic because you narrowed. You know their deep, unspoken fear because you uncovered. And you know exactly how to guide them because you mapped. So your marketing copy basically writes itself.
Right.
Our personal trainer doesn't run an ad about dumbbells. They run an ad that says, "Are you terrified of running into your ex because you feel like you've lost your edge? Let's rebuild your confidence." It cuts through the noise like a laser because it speaks directly to the conversation already happening in the prospect's head.
It's the difference between trying to convince someone they have a problem versus shining a light on a problem they are already desperately trying to solve.
Precisely. If you are struggling to attract leads, it is almost never a copywriting problem. It is a targeting problem. You haven't narrowed enough and you haven't uncovered the real pain.
Which brings us to the final piece of the architecture. Step 5, scale. But the framework is very specific here. It doesn't say scale your company. It says scale with your customers by serving their entire ecosystem. Yeah.
This is where exponential generational wealth and brand loyalty are built. There is a profound difference between scaling to get new customers and scaling with your existing customers.
Break that down. What's the difference?
Scaling to get new customers is horizontal expansion. You conquered the US market, so now you launch in Europe. You conquer fitness enthusiasts, so now you try to market your fitness tracker to busy executives.
Right.
It requires discovering entirely new sales channels, understanding new cultures, fighting new competitors. It is expensive and it's risky.
And scaling with them.
Failing with them is vertical integration based on the success you already provided. If you successfully solve a customer's problem, they evolve. They graduate to a new level of complexity. And with that new level comes entirely new problems.
So you solve those too.
Exactly. Scaling with them means anticipating those new problems and building the solution so they never have to leave your ecosystem.
Give me a massive real-world example of this.
Look at Apple.
Yeah.
Apple didn't just try to sell a Mac to every human on Earth. They realized that once you had a Mac, you wanted a portable way to listen to music. So they built the iPod.
Oh, right.
Then you wanted a way to make calls and use the internet on the go. They built the iPhone. Then you wanted to connect all of them seamlessly. They built iCloud. Then you wanted health tracking. They built the Apple Watch. They scaled with the evolving digital lifestyle of their ideal customer.
They built an entire universe that the customer never wants to leave.
Because leaving is painful.
Yeah.
It's the exact same with Amazon AWS. Amazon Web Services started by just giving startups a little bit of cloud storage.
Right, just basic hosting.
As the startup grew, AWS didn't just sell them more storage. They built machine learning tools, advanced security protocols, database management. They scaled with the success of the companies they were hosting.
To bring it back to our personal trainer analogy, it would be like, okay, the client loses the weight, they get their confidence back, the reunion is a success. If the trainer only scales horizontally, they just go find a new divorced client. But if they scale with the customer, they say, okay, you're fit now, what's next? The client says, I want to run a marathon. The trainer says, great, I'm launching an advanced endurance programming tier. Then the client gets into endurance and says, my joints are hurting. The trainer says, I just partnered with a physical therapist to offer in-house recovery sessions.
That is exactly it. You transition from being a vendor who solved a single problem to an indispensable partner in their ongoing journey. Your lifetime value metrics go through the roof, but not because you force them into a restrictive contract.
Right, they want to stay.
Your LTV skyrockets because your exoskeleton is continually adapting to fit their growing ambitions.
This entire roadmap is so clarifying. Map, uncover, narrow, attract, scale. I want you, the listener, to really sit with this. Evaluate your own business or the department you lead or the startup idea you have in your notebook. Be brutally honest. Which of these 5 steps are you currently skipping?
Most people are skipping 1, 2, and 3.
Exactly. You are buying ads on Instagram. You are obsessing over your logo. You are desperately trying to optimize your SEO. You are living in step 4. But you are attracting people to a broken engine.
Yep.
You haven't mapped the hourglass. You don't know the real emotional problem. And you are trying to serve everyone. If your marketing feels exhausting, if every sale feels like pulling teeth, and if your churn rate is keeping you up at night, it is because you are violating the sequence.
You cannot fix a step 1 problem with a step 4 solution. You can't outmarket a lack of customer success. You have to go back to the blueprint.
As we synthesize all of this, if we have to distill this entire deep dive, the step zero of tuning the engine into one overriding philosophy, it really comes back to that transition from extraction to transformation.
It is the ultimate business paradox.
It really is. It's completely counterintuitive. The paradox is that if you focus entirely on your own revenue, your own growth, and your own survival, you will constantly struggle.
Yeah.
But if you take all of that anxiety and redirect it outward, if you focus 100% of your energy on engineering the absolute undeniable success of a very specific type of customer, your revenue will basically take care of itself.
It ceases to be a battle for resources and becomes a mutual partnership in growth.
You stop casting nets and you start building exoskeletons.
That is the shift from capturing value to creating capability.
Now, obviously, knowing that your engine is powered by your customer's success is a massive revelation, but you're probably wondering how to operationalize that first step. Like, how do you actually map out that customer success track?
That's the hard part.
Yeah. So next time, we are going to dive deeply into the mechanics of step one. We are going to explore exactly why treating your customers like traditional buyers ruins the relationship and how shifting your infrastructure to treat them like members changes absolutely everything about your retention. Until then, take a hard look at your dashboard and ask yourself, are you building a bigger net or are you upgrading the suit?
What if the very shape we've been worshiping in business, like the traditional marketing funnel, is actually the exact thing actively sabotaging your long-term growth?
Oh, that is the perfect question to start with because we really do treat that image like the holy grail of commerce, don't we?
We absolutely do. I mean,
Yeah.
you have this wide opening at the top, right? And you just dump in as many human beings as possible.
It's just total volume.
Yeah, exactly. You apply all this immense pressure, you use gravity and friction, and you squeeze them down this increasingly narrow claustrophobic chute.
Until, a tiny fraction of them finally pop out the bottom as paying customers.
Yes. And we optimize everything for that exact moment of extraction. But we completely ignore the reality of what happens to the human being after the transaction.
Which is wild because the assumption is that once the money changes hands, the game is won. But we are exploring a radically different geometry today in this deep dive.
We are. Because that space right after the transaction, the area of the funnel just completely discards. That's where the only sustainable exponential growth actually lives.
It really is. And to get there, it requires completely dismantling how most organizations view the life cycle of a buyer.
So today we are doing a deep dive into Chapter 3, specifically pages 17 to 28, titled Where Your Best Customers Want to Go, Step 1.
Right. And what you're going to learn today is how to replace that transactional funnel with a 7-stage hourglass framework.
Which is just, it's fundamental for anyone in business, right?
Oh, absolutely. Anyone running a business, leading a team, or just trying to understand modern commerce, because it shifts your entire operational focus away from short-term extraction and toward unrelenting customer success.
Right. We're going to show you how to map out these 7 specific behavioral stages. So you aren't just, acquiring buyers, but you're engineering a system that transforms them into a permanent, unpaid marketing team of raving referrers.
Exactly. I mean, if we just look at the pure physics of the funnel model, it is incredibly hostile.
It's so hostile. Even the terminology is industrial.
Yeah, we talk about capturing leads, targeting prospects, converting them.
It sounds like something you do to an enemy combatant, not a person you want to help.
Totally. You have awareness at the top, narrowing to interest, consideration, intent, and finally, purchase. Everything is angled downward to force a singular outcome.
But when you look at it from the perspective of the person actually handing over their credit card, the whole architecture is backwards.
It's backwards because it only maps what is beneficial for the seller. Those stages, awareness to purchase, they are purely stages of capital extraction.
Right.
The system is designed to remove capital from a prospect's account and put it into the company's bank account. And once that's done, the prospect falls out the bottom. The funnel literally ends in thin air.
For the buyer, handing over the money is not the end of the process. It's day one.
Yes, it's the very beginning of the transformation they are seeking. They don't actually want the transaction.
No, they want the result that the transaction theoretically unlocks. It's like that classic Theodore Levitt quote, right? People don't want to buy a quarter-inch drill, they want a quarter-inch hole.
Exactly. And the traditional funnel stops the absolute second you walk out of the hardware store with that cardboard box in your hand.
The company registers a win on their quarterly spreadsheet, right? But they've built absolutely zero infrastructure to ensure you don't go home, plug the drill into a faulty outlet, and, electrocute yourself.
Or just leave it in the garage for 3 years, because the outcome is completely irrelevant to the funnel.
And that lack of concern for the outcome, it just breeds an incredibly fragile business model.
It does, because if your entire architecture stops at the purchase, you are forced to constantly feed the top of the machine with new bodies.
Because nobody is sticking around. And nobody's bringing their friends.
Exactly. So the alternative to this, which the source material covers beautifully, requires a fundamental shift in identity. We have to stop viewing the people across the table as customers and start viewing them as members.
Okay, let's define that. Because when I hear the word member, my brain immediately goes to, like, a paid subscription.
Sure.
I think of a gym membership or Amazon Prime or swiping a plastic card at a big box warehouse store just to get a discount on, a pallet of toilet paper.
Right, which is how most corporations completely bastardize the concept. But true membership, in this psychological framework we're discussing, it has nothing to do with recurring billing or loyalty points.
Okay, so what is it then?
It's a posture. It's
Yeah.
a psychological shift from transacting with an individual to engaging and investing in them.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, a customer relationship is inherently adversarial. It's zero-sum. I want your money, you want my product, and we negotiate until we meet in the middle.
But a membership relationship is aligned.
Perfectly aligned. It's built on a mutual agreement that the business's success is entirely dependent on the member actually achieving their desired transformation.
So when an organization adopts that membership posture, they actually care more about the long-term outcome for the user than just that immediate dopamine hit of the initial sale.
Exactly. And taking a step back, this completely explains why modern consumer behavior is so erratic and disloyal right now.
Because if you run your business like a funnel, you're essentially treating every interaction like trying to convince a stranger to marry you on a first date.
Yes, that is the perfect analogy.
Right. If you see someone across a crowded room, you get their attention, which is the awareness phase,
Uh-huh.
and you just sprint over, drop to one knee, and demand a lifelong financial commitment. It's jarring.
It's completely self-centered,
Mm.
and it entirely ignores the pacing required for a human being to actually feel safe.
And to push that dating analogy just a little bit further, even if you manage to pressure someone into that first date marriage, maybe through aggressive tactics or heavy discounting, the divorce rate is going to be catastrophic.
The churn rate will be through the roof. Because when you treat people like commodities in a transaction, they will treat your business like a commodity.
They become ruthlessly price sensitive.
Yep. They will abandon you the exact moment a competitor offers a similar product for a fraction of a percent less, because there is zero relational equity keeping them there.
But a member operates totally differently. Like, look at a brand like REI.
Oh, great example.
Yes, they operate a literal consumer cooperative, but the psychological brilliance is in the shared ethos.
Right. When a consumer identifies as a member of that ecosystem, they aren't just buying a waterproof jacket.
No, they're buying into a shared identity. About environmental stewardship, outdoor exploration, they belong to something larger than just a supply chain.
And that identity shift demands a completely different internal culture from the company.
It really does. If we are genuinely treating people as members whose outcomes we're invested in, we can't operate with that frantic short-term anxiety that plagues most marketing departments.
Which brings us to this concept from the chapter that just flips the typical consumer mindset on its head.
Yes, the TLO concept. I love this.
Okay.
So we see the phrase YOLO, you only live once, used endlessly.
Right. Usually to justify impulsive, selfish, or just short-sighted behavior.
Exactly. It's the rallying cry for blowing your budget on a vacation or, eating a terrible diet. But the text introduces an inversion of this called TLO.
TLO, they only live once.
Let's dissect the mechanics of TLO and how it reshapes corporate empathy, because it's fascinating.
It really is. So the origin of this is a thought experiment proposed by a high school teacher in New Jersey.
Okay.
He just got exhausted by his students using YOLO as a blanket excuse for recklessness. So he challenged them to reverse the lens.
How was that?
He said, imagine you knew that it was someone else's absolute last week on Earth, but they were entirely unaware of it and you were forbidden from telling them.
Oh, wow. That's heavy.
Right. In that hyper-specific scenario, they only live once, and their time is rapidly expiring. So he asked his students, How does that change your interaction with them?
It changes everything.
Exactly. How much more patience, grace, and acute attention would you offer that person?
The level of empathy would just skyrocket. You wouldn't waste their time arguing about trivialities.
Oh.
You would want every interaction they had with you to be meaningful, or at the very least, completely devoid of unnecessary friction.
Precisely. Now, I want you to map that philosophy onto a business operating in the modern attention economy.
Because time is the only non-renewable asset your prospect has.
Exactly. If a B2B client is using your enterprise software, they are spending their finite, unrecoverable hours on Earth staring at your user interface.
Right, when you put it like that.
Right. Or if a consumer is reading your email newsletter, they're giving you seconds of their life they will never get back.
So operating with a TLO mindset just annihilates the transactional funnel instantly.
You cannot view a human being as a microscopic conversion percentage on a dashboard if you are operating from a place of profound respect for their limited time.
It forces the organization to ask a much harder question. Since this person is giving us a fraction of their one life, how do we absolutely guarantee they succeed?
Yes. And if that is the mandate guaranteeing success and honoring their time, how does that change the metrics?
That's a great point, because in the funnel, success is incredibly easy to measure. It's just the number at the bottom: revenue, units sold, leads closed.
So if we are dismantling the funnel, what is the core metric that tells a business it's actually succeeding in a membership model?
According to the text, the apex metric of marketing success is not initial revenue, it is referrals.
Referrals, yes. Because if you architect a business where the operational obsession is ensuring the user achieves their desired transformation.
The biological byproduct of that success is that they will advocate for you.
Exactly. In a traditional funnel, a referral is treated as like a serendipitous accident.
Right, it's a nice bonus if it happens.
But in the Hourglass framework, a referral is the engineered mathematical objective of the entire system.
Every previous step is designed specifically to guarantee that final advocacy.
So let's get into the actual architecture of this hourglass.
Let's do it. To visualize this geometry for you listening, if the old funnel is a wide opening at the top that narrows to a tiny point at the bottom, the hourglass is that exact same funnel, but sitting directly on top of an upside-down funnel.
Right. It's wide at the top, it narrows significantly at the point of the initial purchase, but instead of stopping there, the walls widen right back out again.
And there are 7 distinct behavioral stages to this journey. Let's start by dissecting the top half of the hourglass, the courting phase, before any money changes hands.
The first 4 stages. No, like trust and try.
These aren't just arbitrary marketing jargon, right?
No, not at all. They mirror the sequential biological and psychological requirements for human trust. You simply cannot bypass the sequence.
Walk us through the first one.
No. The first stage, no, is simply establishing existence. Before someone can engage with your solution, they have to realize you actually inhabit the same universe.
So in practical terms, this is visibility.
Exactly. Search engine optimization, paid advertising, public relations, organic social media reach.
But merely knowing you exist holds 0 emotional weight. I mean, awareness is not preference.
Right.
Like, I am highly aware of plenty of politicians and celebrities that I absolutely despise.
We all are.
Yeah. So awareness does not equal affinity.
Which necessitates the second stage.
Yeah.
And we really need to define, carefully in a business context.
Yeah, because it doesn't mean they want to invite your brand over for a barbecue.
Exactly. It means they experience a moment of deep resonance. Right.
Exactly.
When they consume your content or read your website, they must feel a profound sense of recognition. Do you articulate their specific, nuanced pain points better than they can articulate them themselves?
Oh, that is so powerful.
Do you speak their exact industry dialect? When a prospect feels understood, they inherently begin to like the source of that understanding.
It's that phenomenon of reading a highly specific article about a problem you've been, quietly struggling with and thinking, wait, are these people spying on me? This is exactly what I am going through.
That exact internal monologue is the successful execution of the like stage.
But resonance is fragile, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it certainly doesn't immediately unlock a budget.
No, it doesn't. And that requires the third stage, trust.
Because they might like your perspective, but they will not allocate capital until they trust your competence.
Exactly. They have to believe unequivocally that your proposed mechanism will actually deliver the transformation you're promising.
So this is where organizations have to deploy undeniable proof.
Yes. Granular case studies, verifiable third-party reviews, transparent methodologies, and deep dive educational content that actually proves expertise rather than just claiming it.
Okay, this is where I have to pause and challenge the progression a bit.
Mm.
Play devil's advocate.
Go for it.
Like trust, that makes perfect logical sense to me. But the fourth stage is try.
Yes, try.
Right. Before they buy, they have to try it. Now, if I am a software company, sure, a 14-day free trial makes complete sense.
Sure.
But what if I'm a specialized B2B consultant billing $500 an hour? Or an architectural firm designing custom facilities? I cannot physically afford to implement a try phase.
Okay, I see where you're going.
Right. Because if I give away free strategy sessions or free blueprints to every prospect who happens to like my LinkedIn posts, my unit economics collapse immediately. Doesn't a try phase just devalue premium services and invite a flood of tire kickers who will drain resources and never convert?
That is probably the single most common and dangerous misconception about the top of the hourglass.
Really?
Yes. The try phase is not about giving away your core intellectual property for free, and it is certainly not about inviting unqualified prospects to drain your calendar.
Okay, then what is it?
The try phase is a highly calibrated mutual filter. It is an audition for both parties.
Oh, a filter.
Exactly. In your example of a high-end architectural firm, the try phase is not a free blueprint. It might be a paid, low-risk engagement. For example, a $2,000 site feasibility audit.
Wait, so they are actually paying for the try phase?
Often, yes. Or they are paying with intense friction. Like maybe they have to spend 2 hours filling out a rigorous diagnostic assessment before you will even take a phone call.
Interesting.
The entire purpose of the try phase is to force the prospect to experience your methodology in miniature. It educates them on the unique, irreplaceable value of how your specific brain works.
And more importantly, it creates a mechanism to disqualify the wrong people.
Bingo. If a prospective client looks at a $2,000 feasibility audit and balks or refuses to fill out the diagnostic, that is a massive operational victory.
Because you just successfully filtered out a highly price-sensitive, non-compliant client who would have been an absolute nightmare during a multi-million-dollar build.
Precisely.
I see the distinction now. We are actively engineering friction. We want the wrong people to self-select out before they ever reach the sales team.
Exactly. The traditional funnel tries to eliminate all friction to maximize the conversion rate. But the hourglass uses intelligent friction to maximize the quality of the relationship.
That is a huge paradigm shift.
It is, because if you bypass trust and try-like, if you just run an aggressive ad straight to a high-ticket sales consultation, you are dragging uneducated, uncalibrated prospects into a pricing conversation.
And because they haven't experienced your methodology, the only variable they have to judge you against is your price.
Right, but when you mandate that they pass through, like trust and try, the perfect fit clients realize you are the singular logical solution to their problem.
So by the time they arrive at the buy stage, the price is largely irrelevant because the perceived risk has been reduced to near zero.
Exactly.
It's like installing strategic speed bumps on a highway. You are deliberately forcing them to decelerate, look at the landscape, understand the terrain, and consciously confirm that they are driving in the right direction.
That's a great way to put it.
Because if you just grease the chute and accelerate them into a purchase they aren't fully prepared for, you might secure the revenue for that quarter, but you are virtually guaranteeing a volatile, high-maintenance relationship and eventual churn.
And that volatility explodes in the fifth stage, which is the narrowest point of the hourglass. Buy.
Okay, let's talk about the buy stage.
So the prospect has navigated the speed bumps, they trust the methodology, they hand over the capital, and they sign the contract. In the funnel model, the champagne is popped, the commission is paid, and the sales team just moves on to the next target.
Right.
But in the hourglass model, the buy stage is viewed as the zone of maximum psychological danger.
Wait, why danger? I mean, you just agreed to the terms. The hardest part is over, isn't it?
The financial negotiation is over, yes, but the emotional turbulence is just beginning.
Oh, because of buyer's remorse.
Exactly. The exact second a human being relinquishes capital, especially a significant amount of corporate budget or personal savings, their neurochemistry changes. The dopamine of the search is instantly replaced by the cortisol of buyer's remorse.
They are flooded with unspoken anxieties like, did I just make a massive mistake?
Are they going to disappear now that they have my money?
Is my boss going to fire me for championing this vendor? if the implementation fails?
The panic is immediate. The gap between the promise made in marketing and the reality of the delivery is suddenly terrifying.
So therefore, the buy stage actually has very little to do with the exchange of currency. It is entirely about the immediate onboarding experience and the management of those anxieties.
Exactly. It is about aggressively confirming that they made the correct choice. How quickly can you deliver a quick win? How transparently can you map out the next 90 days so they feel safe and oriented?
And a profound element of this stage is expectation management, specifically regarding the difficult parts of the process.
Yes. And there's a brilliant case study in the text about this involving a residential remodeling contractor.
Oh, this story is so good. Anyone who has lived through a kitchen renovation knows it is an agonizing process.
It's awful.
Your home is invaded by strangers, there's dust in your coffee mugs, the water is shut off, the noise is deafening. It literally strains marriages.
It does, and most contractors try to downplay that disruption just to get the contract signed, which leads to furious clients halfway through the build.
But this particular contractor deployed a radically different strategy during the buy stage right as the contract was signed.
He scripted the emotional journey for them.
Exactly. He sat them down at their kitchen table and said, look, right now you are excited about the beautiful new cabinets, but I need to warn you about week 3.
During week 3, we are going to be sanding the drywall compound.
It is going to generate a fine white dust that will coat everything you own, despite our best plastic barriers. The sanders operate at a pitch that will give you a headache, and you are going to feel a profound sense of regret and anger. You are going to want to throw us out of your house.
He is deliberately introducing negative expectations. From a traditional sales perspective, that sounds absolutely suicidal.
Right. What happens when week 3 actually arrives?
Well, week 3 arrives, the dust covers the furniture, the sander starts screaming, and the clients are completely calm.
They look at each other and say, wow, he was totally right. This is awful, but we knew it was coming.
The friction was neutralized simply because the expectation was set and met. The contractor preserved the trust by predicting the pain.
If he had hidden that reality, the clients would have felt betrayed. They would have assumed the mess was a result of incompetence rather than just a necessary phase of construction.
That is a masterclass in navigating the buy stage.
It really is.
If your software implementation requires 40 hours of tedious data migration from the client's IT team, you do not hide that fact. You script it.
You warn them that the migration phase will be incredibly frustrating.
Because when you preemptively manage the emotional volatility of the journey, you build an impenetrable foundation of reliability.
And that reliability is what unlocks the 6th stage as the hourglass widens back out. Repeat.
Yes. Let's explore the economics of repeat, because it isn't necessarily just convincing them to buy the exact same unit of software again.
No, repeat is the monetization of confirmed trust. It is the realization by the member that remaining inside your ecosystem is vastly more efficient and profitable than going back out into the open market.
Right? They don't want to subject themselves to the know, like, and trust process all over again with an unknown entity.
Like if a marketing agency successfully rebuilds a website and navigates the buy stage perfectly, the client doesn't want to find a new vendor for SEO.
No, they want the agency they already trust to handle it.
Because the cost of acquiring a new customer is astronomical compared to the cost of expanding a relationship with a member who already believes in your operational competence.
Which accelerates the momentum straight into the final, widest section of the bottom of the hourglass. Refer.
We established earlier that referrals are the apex metric of this system. But how do we transition from just, hoping for word of mouth to actively engineering it?
We have to understand the biological and sociological drivers of referrals. People do not refer your business out of a sense of charitable obligation to your profit margins.
Right. They don't care about your bottom line.
No. They refer your business to elevate their own social capital. We are tribal creatures. If I can introduce a peer to a flawless solution for a problem that is causing them pain, I elevate my status within the tribe.
You look smart, resourceful, and connected. You become the hero of their story simply by making the introduction.
Exactly. But the hourglass framework demands that we do not leave this biological imperative to chance. We must systematically remove all friction from the act of sharing.
So we have to actively design mechanisms. exclusive invite codes, co-branded diagnostic tools they can pass to colleagues, hosted dinners where they are encouraged to bring a peer facing similar challenges.
You have to arm your successful members with the exact vocabulary and tools they need to look brilliant when they recommend you.
Okay, the theory is incredibly sound.
Ah.
We have the 7 behavioral stages.
Yeah.
No, like trust, try, buy, repeat, refer. The geometry makes complete sense.
Yep.
But if I am a founder or a VP of marketing listening to this, the sheer scale of re-architecting an entire business away from a funnel and into an hourglass feels paralyzing.
Oh, it can definitely feel overwhelming.
Where is the starting line? How does an executive team actually build this without getting bogged down in endless theoretical meetings?
The transition from theory to execution happens through a highly structured 3-step mapping workshop detailed in the chapter. It is designed to visualize the entire journey and expose the exact points where the business is failing the customer.
Okay, so you start by drawing a grid on a whiteboard, right? Down the left side, you list the 7 hourglass stages.
Yes. And step 1 is to brainstorm customer actions. I imagine this requires stepping entirely outside of the company's internal jargon and looking at the raw behavior of the prospect.
Completely outside. During step 1, no one is allowed to talk about your product, your marketing campaigns, or your sales quotas.
You ask a singular question for each of the 7 stages. What does our ideal prospect actually do in the real world when they are at this stage?
Let's apply this to a complex hypothetical. Say, a mid-market manufacturing company looking for a new logistics provider.
Okay, great. At the no stage, they aren't eagerly searching for your brand name. Their action is, the VP of supply chain realizes shipping delays are eating 5% of their margin, panics, and asks a private Slack community of other logistics executives for advice.
So the action is hyper-specific. It's not just searching online, it's seeking peer validation in a closed network due to margin compression.
Exactly. You map these visceral actions all the way down the 7 stages. At the trust stage, their action might be, the CFO demands to see 3 case studies of similar manufacturers who achieved ROI within 6 months.
And at the buy stage, the action is, the procurement team signs the contract, but the frontline warehouse managers are deeply cynical and expect the new software to crash their current workflows.
You are mapping their physical actions and their emotional states.
Which brings us to step 2, define our response. We have the map of their behavior, now we have to audit our actual corporate behavior.
Right. You look directly at the customer action you just defined and you ask, what is our organization's current tangible response to this specific behavior?
So if we know the VP of supply chain is asking for advice in a private Slack channel at the no stage, what is our response?
Do we have strategic partners or current raving members inside those channels who are equipped to mention our name?
Right. And if the CFO demands ROI case studies at the trust stage, do we have those documents easily accessible? Or does the sales rep have to scramble for 3 days to invent them?
If the warehouse managers are cynical at the buy stage, do we deploy an on-site integration specialist to hold their hands, or do we just email them a PDF manual and wish them luck?
The brutal honesty required for step 2 leads directly into the third and most consequential step, identify gaps.
This is where the illusions of a perfect marketing strategy are destroyed.
It is a sobering exercise.
It really is. When you lay the customer actions next to the company responses, the voids become glaringly obvious. You will inevitably find stages where the customer is desperate for reassurance, taking massive action, and your response box is completely empty.
You might realize you spend, $50,000 a month on Google Ads in the no stage, but your try box contains absolutely nothing to lower the barrier to entry.
Meaning that expensive traffic is just bouncing off a high-friction sales wall?
Or you reach the refer stage, and the customer action wants to help a peer avoid the same supply chain issues, and your corporate response is, we send an automated NPS survey once a year.
That isn't a referral mechanism, it's administrative spam.
Exactly.
When you identify that gap, it instantly crystallizes your operational priorities. Instead of the marketing team chasing the latest TikTok algorithm or obsessing over minor website color changes, the entire company realizes, our trust response is broken. We have 0 case studies. Nobody is allowed to work on anything else until we bridge that gap.
What I find most powerful about this mapping exercise is how violently it tears down traditional corporate silos.
Oh, absolutely.
Because in a standard funnel-driven company, departments are isolated fortresses. Marketing is entirely responsible for the top of the funnel buying attention and generating leads.
And then they throw those leads over a brick wall to sales who operate the middle of the funnel.
Sales pressures the leads into signing a contract. and then throws them over another brick wall to customer success, who are left to manage the burning wreckage of whatever unrealistic promises sales made.
They never communicate, and they actively resent each other.
Marketing complains the leads are great, but sales is lazy. Sales complains the leads are garbage. Customer success complains that everyone is lying to the clients.
And who suffers the friction of those internal turf wars? The member.
Exactly. The buyer doesn't care about your internal org chart. They don't view themselves as interacting with a marketing qualified lead specialist and then an account executive. They are interacting with one single entity, your brand.
And they feel every single dropped baton during those handoffs.
If marketing promises a highly consultative, bespoke experience in the like and trust phases, but then the prospect is handed to a sales rep who operates like a high-pressure boiler room closer in the buy phase,
The cognitive dissonance shatters the trust instantly.
the hourglass map forces alignment because it makes the handoffs visible. When the CMO, the VP of sales, and the head of customer success are forced to stare at the same seven-stage grid, they can't blame each other.
No, they see that a breakdown in the buy stage is actually caused by a misaligned promise made in the no stage. It transforms isolated departments into a relay team.
Everyone understands that their specific function is entirely subservient to the ultimate goal of moving the members smoothly toward their desired outcome.
This framework is so robust that applying it solely to external marketing almost feels like a waste of its potential, honestly.
Right, because if these 7 stages map the universal requirements for a human being to accept a new reality and change their behavior, couldn't we weaponize this framework for internal operations?
Absolutely. The hourglass is effectively a universal behavioral decoder. It is a Swiss Army knife for change management.
Let's look at how you can hack the hourglass to execute a massive internal initiative. Consider a scenario that happens in almost every mid-size or enterprise company. The rollout of a new, complex software system, like an ERP or a new CRM.
The classic nightmare scenario.
It really is. The executive team goes to a retreat, buys a massive enterprise license, and comes back to the office on Monday. They send an all-company email that says, "We are transitioning to Salesforce. All old systems will be shut down on Friday. Log in and start using it."
And the result is always chaos. Adoption rates are abysmal, data is entered incorrectly, and the employees actively sabotage the system because they resent it.
Why? Because the executive team operated like a transactional marketing funnel.
Exactly. They jumped straight from a localized, no stage announcing the software exists, directly to a forced buy stage demanding immediate compliance.
They entirely bypassed the human requirements for resonance, trust, and low-risk trial.
So how would an executive team architect that exact same software rollout using the hourglass?
You have to guide your own employees through the courtship phase. You start with internal no. Long before a contract is signed with a vendor, you communicate the existential threat to the company.
Our current data silos are costing us 15% in efficiency, which threatens our bonus pool. You establish the reality of the problem so everyone agrees a solution is necessary.
Then you move to like and trust.
Yes. You hold departmental town halls. You ask the frontline workers, the people who will actually suffer through using the software, what their daily bottlenecks are.
When they hear management articulating their exact frustrations, they begin to like the initiative.
You build trust by bringing in representatives from different departments to evaluate the potential vendors, proving that the decision isn't just being made in an ivory tower.
And the crucial step, the internal try phase. You don't mandate a company-wide cutover on a Friday afternoon.
Never. You select a pilot group, you find the most influential, perhaps even the most cynical employees in a specific department, and you make them the beta testers.
You give them a sandbox environment. You let them try to break the software. You listen to their feedback and adjust the workflows.
You let them experience the friction in a low-stakes environment.
And the brilliance of that is, when it's finally time for the internal buy phase, the actual company-wide rollout, the executive team doesn't have to sell it.
Because your beta testers have automatically become your internal refer engine.
Yes. They are sitting in the break room telling their skeptical colleagues, "Look, I thought this new CRM was going to be terrible too, but I've been testing it for a month and it actually automates all that reporting we hate."
You have achieved total compliance by respecting the psychological journey of your team. It is the exact same mechanism, whether you are trying to convince a stranger to buy a bespoke architectural design or trying to convince an accountant to change how they log invoices.
You can also reverse engineer this entire process when developing a new product from scratch, right?
Oh, this is perhaps the most aggressive application of the hourglass.
Instead of building a product and then asking the marketing team to figure out how to sell it, you build the hourglass entirely backward.
Starting at the very end, starting at refer.
You start with a blank whiteboard and you ask your product development team, if our sole objective is to ensure that 100% of the people who buy this new service are biologically compelled to tell 3 peers about it within the first 30 days, what must this product do?
That fundamentally changes what you build. You aren't just designing a functional tool, you are engineering shareability and delight directly into the feature set.
You are building mechanisms that make the user look like a genius for using it.
Exactly. Once you have defined what guarantees a referral, you move backward to repeat. What features ensure they log in every single day?
Then backward to buy. What kind of radical risk-reversing guarantee can we embed into the offer to eliminate buyer's remorse before it even starts?
By the time you work your way all the way backward to the know and like stages, the advertising copy practically writes itself.
Because the product has been flawlessly calibrated to guarantee customer success. You aren't inventing marketing spin, you are simply describing an undeniable reality.
When we pull all of these threads together, the contrast is just staggering.
It really is. The transactional funnel is a philosophy of exhaustion. It treats human beings as combustible fuel to be burned in the furnace of short-term revenue.
It requires endless spending at the top to replace the bodies discarded at the bottom.
But the marketing hourglass operates on a philosophy of elevation. It treats human beings as members. It acknowledges that marketing is not a psychological trick you play on a target. It is a meticulously guided journey you take with a partner.
And when you commit to that journey, when you refuse to abandon them at the finish line of the transaction and instead obsess over their ultimate transformation, they reward you with the most powerful growth engine in existence.
Their permanent advocacy.
That is the definitive truth of this framework. When you align your operational survival entirely with the success of the people you serve, the growth becomes self-sustaining.
The friction disappears because you are no longer fighting against human nature, you are facilitating it.
Absolutely.
Now that you have charted the 7 stages of this journey and you understand the mechanics of transitioning from extraction to membership, a critical logistical question remains.
Which is, if we are promising this transformation, how do we empirically measure that the member is actually succeeding at each of the 7 steps?
Exactly. How do we prevent them from stalling out in the repeat phase or failing to achieve the refer state?
Next time, we will explore the architecture of a customer success track, a literal, measurable GPS for client transformation that ensures no one ever gets lost in the machinery of your business.
Until then, take a long, unflinching look at the architecture of your own sales process and ask yourself, is it finally time to turn your funnel into an hourglass? What if the very moment a customer clicks buy, your marketing hasn't actually ended? What if it's, on the verge of a catastrophic failure?
That is a terrifying thought for most businesses.
Right. Because we are so culturally conditioned to just ring a bell when a deal closes. To celebrate that transaction as the ultimate finish line.
Oh yeah, the classic sales gong in the office.
Exactly, the sales gong. But today, we are ripping up the traditional marketing funnel entirely.
Good riddance to it, honestly.
Yeah, we're going to look at this behavioral blueprint from our source material today, specifically diving into the Marketing Hourglass workshop that proves obsessing over the point of purchase is just a recipe for short-term revenue.
And long-term stagnation.
100%. The reality is, the moment money changes hands, that isn't the end of the race. It is barely the starting block.
It really requires a total, almost neurological shift in how you view your operations. I mean, we have built entire corporate ecosystems around this adrenaline rush of acquisition.
Right, like the thrill of the hunt.
Exactly. The sales team hits their quota, the marketing team calculates their cost per click, everyone high fives. And then what happens? The customer is basically just tossed over a brick wall to the customer service department.
Good luck. You're their problem now.
Yeah. And what gets lost in that celebration is that the customer's actual experience of value, like the transformation they were actually promised when they handed over their credit card, it hasn't even begun yet.
That distinction right there between transaction and transformation, that's the exact territory we are mapping in this deep dive today.
It's vital territory.
It really is, because we are exploring a highly specific, step-by-step operational blueprint designed to turn skeptical prospects into raving fans. And, it's not based on aggressive sales tactics.
No, it's based on human psychology
Yeah.
and systems engineering.
Yes. So if you are trying to scale a business, or if you're just fascinated by the hidden mechanics of why we buy and why you stay loyal to certain brands, you're about to get a literal architecture to remap your entire customer journey.
Let's get into it.
We're going to start by taking a sledgehammer to the traditional funnel, and then we're going to build something entirely new in its place. So why exactly does the funnel have to go?
Well, the traditional marketing funnel has to go primarily because its fundamental flaw is baked right into its geometry.
The actual shape of it.
Exactly. Think about the shape. It's super wide at the top, right? To aggregate as many leads as humanly possible. And then it just aggressively, continuously narrows down to this single microscopic point.
The purchase.
The purchase. And then the customer just drops out the bottom. The transaction gets recorded in some spreadsheet, and the company's attention just snaps immediately back up to the top of the funnel to go find the next lead.
It's an inherently selfish model when you describe it like that.
It is totally selfish. It maps the journey based entirely on what the company wants to extract, which is capital, rather than what the customer wants to achieve.
Which is a solution to their problem.
Right. They want a transformation, not to just be a number on a sales board.
It essentially treats human beings like raw ore being refined into a dollar sign.
That's a great way to put it.
But the alternative architecture we are looking at completely flips that dynamic. It replaces that top-heavy funnel with what the source material calls the marketing hourglass.
The hourglass, yes.
In this model, the purchase isn't the bottom of the structure at all. The purchase is just the narrow neck right in the middle of the glass.
The choke point.
Right. And once they pass through that neck, the journey expands back outward. It becomes this continuous behavioral loop. And it consists of 7 distinct stages. And like trust, try, buy, repeat, and refer.
And the visual of the hourglass is so crucial here because it visually represents that post-purchase expansion. You want that single newly acquired customer to grow in value, to repeat their business.
And eventually to refer others.
Exactly. That referral expansion is what creates the why base of the hourglass, which eventually, loops right back up to feed the top.
But to even earn the right to that bottom half, you have to meticulously engineer the front half first.
The pre-purchase stages.
Right. The know, like, trust and try. And the text emphasizes that these aren't just marketing buzzwords. They are a psychological filtration system.
They really are. And that filtration aspect is where, honestly, most aggressive growth strategies just fail spectacularly.
Because everyone just wants to skip to the end.
Exactly. There's this assumption that marketing is just this brute force exercise. Like you just have to drag people to the buy stage as fast as humanly possible.
Right. If you just scream loud enough on a billboard.
Or run enough targeted social media ads, you can just force a conversion. But if you skip directly from no to buy, it destroys your margins.
It absolutely destroys them. Because if you skip straight to buy, you haven't taken any time to educate the prospect on your unique value or your methodology.
Or the depth of your expertise, none of it.
So the only metric they have left to judge you on is price.
Yep. You just attract price shoppers and non-ideal customers. And nobody wins a race to the bottom on price.
Except a monopoly.
Exactly. Unless you're Amazon, you lose.
It's like trying to heat a house by just lighting a massive bonfire in the middle of the living room. But you didn't take the time to build a chimney first.
Oh, that's vivid.
Right. You might get a quick burst of intense heat, but you're going to immediately choke out everyone inside with smoke. You get the quick cash of the transaction, but you suffocate your business with customers who don't understand your value.
The ones who demand constant discounts.
Exactly. And they drain your operational resources because that infrastructure of trust was never actually built.
That is a highly accurate way to look at it. To build that chimney, to establish that infrastructure, you have to guide them sequentially through, trust and try.
And let's talk about the stage, because the source points out it's heavily misunderstood.
Oh, completely.
It has nothing to do with being their best friend.
Or having this super casual, trying too hard brand voice on Twitter.
Right. It is highly visceral.
Yeah.
The human brain makes these subconscious snap judgments about safety and competence in fractions of a second.
The stage is entirely about clearing that initial primitive hurdle. It's basically the digital equivalent of making eye contact and having a firm handshake.
And one of the most fascinating examples of this visceral reaction from the text is website load times.
Oh, this is huge.
If a website takes 4 or 5 seconds to load, the stage is instantly shattered.
Instantly.
And 5 seconds sounds like nothing in the physical world. If you wait 5 seconds in line for coffee, you don't even notice. But in a digital environment, waiting 5 seconds for a page to render feels like an absolute eternity.
It really does. The user feels the spike of frustration, their brain perceives friction, and they just hit the back button before you even get to make a pitch. The psychology of digital impatience is a massive factor here, because when an environment is entirely frictionless, any introduction of friction is perceived as incompetence.
Right.
If you can't value a prospect's time enough to maintain just a functional, optimized digital presence, their subconscious brain immediately extrapolates that incompetence to your actual product.
They think, well, if they can't even run a basic website.
Exactly. How are they going to solve my complex logistics problem? You fail the like test, which means you never even get the opportunity to attempt the trust test.
And trust is an entirely different beast.
It really is.
In a modern zero-trust digital economy where literally everyone has a slick website and everyone makes massive promises, trust requires external validation.
Consumers have just been burned way too many times to just take a company at its word anymore.
Which is where this architecture demands social proof. Third-party reviews, detailed case studies.
Because humans are fundamentally herd animals, especially when it comes to resource allocation, we mitigate risk by looking for consensus.
Right. Is it safe to spend my money here?
Exactly. So when a prospect is in the trust stage, they aren't just looking for a generic 5-star review, they are looking for a mirror.
A mirror.
Yeah, they want to see that you have successfully solved this exact problem for someone who looks, sounds, and operates exactly like they do.
Oh, that makes sense. They need to see a case study of a peer who survived the journey and actually got the result.
Precisely. And once that baseline trust is established, then we move into the try stage.
And this is that low-stakes interaction where the customer gets to test the waters without absorbing any real risk, right?
Exactly. We often think of this as like a free 30-day software trial, but it goes way deeper than software. It's an evaluation of the company's DNA.
Give me an example of that.
It could be as simple as an initial consultation or attending a free webinar, or even just judging how the front desk answers the phone and routes a technical question.
So it's an audition.
It's an audition of your culture and your operational competence. It is a micro commitment. You're asking them to spend a little bit of time rather than a lot of money to validate that everything you promised in the know, and trust stages, is actually authentic.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second. I see the logic, but I have to introduce a point of friction here.
Bring it on.
Describing this as a sequential, multi-stage courtship makes it sound incredibly slow. Like it sounds like a sales cycle that takes months.
I can see why it sounds that way.
But we both know businesses that can convert cold traffic almost instantly. The text uses a great example of a high-level keynote speaker.
Ah, yes, Michael and Amy Port of Heroic Public Speaking.
Exactly. Someone steps onto a stage in front of an audience of 1,000 strangers who have no idea who they are.
Totally cold audience.
Right. And 45 minutes later, half that room is literally rushing to the back of the auditorium to purchase a high-ticket consulting package. If the hourglass requires this deliberate infrastructural buildup of know, trust and try, how are masterful communicators collapsing that entire journey into less than an hour?
What's fascinating here is that this is the crucial nuance of the behavioral architecture. The marketing hourglass is not governed by the literal passage of time.
It's not.
No, it is governed by behavioral and psychological checkboxes. The stages are mandatory, yes, but the speed at which a prospect moves through them is entirely dependent on the intensity and the quality of the interaction.
This is about the density of the experience, not the duration of it.
Exactly. When a masterful speaker takes the stage, they are actively engineering those checkboxes in real time. The audience comes to know their core premise in the first 5 minutes.
Right.
They like the speaker because of, say, a self-deprecating joke or just compelling stage presence. The speaker establishes trust by dropping hard data, industry credentials, and rapid-fire case studies.
And then how do they do the tri-stage from a stage?
Crucially, the speaker facilitates the tri-stage by having the audience participate in a mental exercise or like a quick tearing activity right there in their seats.
Oh, turn to the person next to you and do this.
Yes. The audience experiences a micro-transformation in real time. The checkboxes are all checked sequentially. They are just compressed into 45 minutes.
That is brilliant.
So the framework scales to fit any environment, from a 5-minute digital funnel to an 18-month enterprise software procurement cycle.
That completely changes the application of this. It's a psychological map, not a calendar.
Exactly.
So assuming we have successfully navigated that top half, whether it took 45 minutes or 45 weeks, the checkboxes are checked, the prospect crosses the threshold.
They hand over the capital.
Right, they enter the buy stage. Now, we are in the bottom half of the hourglass, and this is where the text argues the operational stakes skyrocket.
Because the burden of proof shifts entirely onto the company now.
Right. During the entire top half of the hourglass, the prospect is building this elaborate set of unspoken expectations.
They are visualizing the relief of finally having their problem solved.
Yes, and the instant they make the purchase, they enter a highly vulnerable psychological state. And if the business does not actively, aggressively manage that post-purchase transition.
The customer slams headfirst into one of the most powerful forces in behavioral economics.
Cognitive dissonance.
Buyer's remorse.
It's that immediate sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach after a major purchase. We've all felt it.
Yeah, we have, because it is a biological reality. Leading up to a purchase, the brain is flooded with dopamine, the neurochemical of anticipation and desire.
Right, you're excited.
Exactly. But the moment the transaction is complete, that dopamine drops off a cliff.
The anticipation is gone.
Gone. Replaced by the reality of depleted resources. Your money is gone. So the brain suddenly starts scanning for threats, asking, did I just make a massive mistake? Is this actually going to work? Did I just get scammed?
And if a company just processes the credit card and goes completely silent for 3 days while they set up the account.
That silence is interpreted by the customer's brain as a confirmation of their worst fears.
Wow.
That silence breeds profound regret.
This means onboarding isn't just an administrative task. It is an active psychological intervention. You have to intercept that dopamine crash.
You do.
And there is this brilliant illustration in the source material of how to do this involving a residential remodeling contractor. It perfectly encapsulates what active expectation management looks like.
Oh, the contractor example is perfect because the residential construction industry is practically a factory for generating buyer's remorse.
Oh, absolutely. You are dealing with massive sums of money, literal destruction of the client's personal sanctuary, and inevitable delays.
Anyone who has lived through a major kitchen remodel knows it is an absolute nightmare.
There is fine dust coating everything you own. There are strangers walking through your living room at 7 a.m. Your daily routine is obliterated.
It's pure stress.
But this specific contractor intercepts that nightmare by handing the client a literal emotional roadmap on day one.
An emotional roadmap.
Yes, they sit the client down and say, listen, in week 3, we are going to start the drywall sanding phase. It is going to be incredibly loud. The noise is going to be grating. There will be dust in places you didn't think dust could reach. And you are going to feel like you are on the verge of a nervous breakdown.
I love this. They are actively predicting a negative emotional state. They are pre-framing the trauma.
Right, and the psychological leverage that creates is staggering. Because 3 weeks later, when the drywall sanding actually starts, and the client is sitting in their living room, vibrating from the noise of the power sanders, their reaction completely changes.
Instead of getting furious and calling the contractor to scream about the noise,
their brain recognizes the pattern. They think, oh, right, they told me this would happen. This is normal. I am right on schedule.
The friction still exists, but the suffering is eliminated because the expectation was managed.
In fact, they trust the contractor more in that moment because the contractor proved they deeply understood the reality of the client's experience.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that is the operationalization of empathy. The contractor didn't just understand the physical mechanics of building a kitchen. They understood the psychological mechanics of living in a construction zone.
Yeah.
When you manage that emotional journey so precisely, you neutralize cognitive dissonance and you seamlessly move the customer into the repeat stage.
Which is where the economics of the business fundamentally transform.
Absolutely. The repeat stage is the bedrock of predictable revenue. The cost of acquiring a new customer is astronomical compared to the cost of retaining an existing one.
Right.
If you have guided them safely through the buy stage and delivered on the transformation, selling them additional value, higher tier consulting, maintenance packages requires almost zero friction. They already know, like, and trust you.
But the repeat stage isn't the finish line either. The entire architecture of the hourglass is designed to push the customer to the final stage. So I have to ask, why is a referral considered the ultimate irrefutable metric of success in this model?
Because a referral represents a transfer of reputational risk.
Reputational risk.
Think about it. A customer might buy from you again simply out of convenience or inertia. It's just easier than finding someone new. But a customer will never risk their own social capital, their own reputation with their peers, friends, or colleagues unless your delivery of the promised transformation was absolute.
Ah, I see.
When that remodeling client tells their neighbor, you have to hire these guys, they literally predicted exactly how stressed we would be and guided us through it. That referral is the ultimate validation.
And it creates a self-sustaining ecosystem. The referral brings in a new prospect, but that prospect doesn't start at zero.
No, they don't.
They enter your ecosystem with the and trust stages already partially bypassed because they are borrowing the trust of the person who referred them.
Exactly. It accelerates the entire front half of the hourglass for that next generation of customers.
It creates an acquisition loop that is immune to changes in advertising costs or algorithm updates. It is pure organic momentum.
It's the holy grail of marketing.
So the philosophy of the marketing hourglass is watertight. It makes complete logical sense. But having a philosophy doesn't execute the work on a Tuesday morning.
It certainly does not.
How do we prevent this from just being an abstract concept? How does a business actually map this out? Because the text outlines a very deliberate three-step workshop designed to audit and build this architecture.
Yes, the workshop phase. This is where you force reality to confront your assumptions.
Right.
Step 1 is brainstorming the actual actions your target customer takes at every single stage of the hourglass. Step 2 is identifying exactly what your company currently does in response to those specific actions.
And step 3?
Step 3 is brutally analyzing the gap between the two and building new processes to bridge it.
And the text points out that the friction point usually happens immediately in step 1.
Oh, almost always.
Because when leadership teams brainstorm customer actions, they almost always map out what they want the customer to do rather than what the customer actually does.
We all want the ideal scenario, right? The prospect sees our brilliantly designed ad, clicks it, reads every word of our meticulously crafted landing page, and smoothly books a consultation.
But human behavior is rarely that linear or compliant. What if your target demographic doesn't use Google to find solutions?
That's a huge blind spot for a lot of companies.
Right. What if their actual behavior when faced with a business problem is to bypass search engines entirely, open up a private peer-to-peer Facebook or LinkedIn group, and ask their network for a recommendation?
If that is the empirical reality of their behavior, then that is the reality your business must map to.
You can't stubbornly insist they use your preferred channel.
No, you can't. If they are making their buying decisions inside private community groups, your entire know and trust strategy has to be engineered around how you become the organically recommended answer inside that specific ecosystem.
You have to bend your operations to their reality, not the other way around.
Exactly. And analyzing the gap in step 3 often reveals that companies have massive black holes in their hourglass.
Like what?
Well, they might have a brilliant no strategy and a slick buy process, but absolutely zero infrastructure for the try stage. So they're forcing prospects to take massive leaps of faith, which ultimately suppresses conversion rates.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Look at how this psychological mapping plays out internally, too.
Oh, yes.
This isn't just a framework for external marketing. It is a universal behavioral map. There is this brilliant application from the text regarding internal change management. Specifically, a massive accounting firm that tried and failed to force its staff to use new customer relationship management, or CRM, software.
Internal employees are just customers of internal systems. They require the exact same behavioral sequence to adopt a new tool as a prospect requires to buy a product.
Exactly. So this firm realized they had a systemic issue. No centralized database of client contacts. So leadership makes an executive decision, buys an expensive CRM, and sends out a top-down memo that essentially says, effective Monday, all staff must log all client interactions in this new system.
And let me guess, the result was an absolute operational revolt.
Total non-compliance. Staff dug their heels in and refused to use it.
Because from an hourglass perspective, leadership attempted to force the entire staff directly from the no stage, reading a memo immediately into the buy stage, changing their daily workflow with zero courtship, zero trust building, and zero trial period.
They bypassed the entire psychological filtration system.
They relied on mandate instead of persuasion.
Right. So, after the rollout completely stalled, they brought in consultants who recognized the failure was behavioral, not technical. They mapped the CRM rollout using the marketing hourglass.
How did they do that?
Well, instead of blasting another threatening memo to the entire firm, they identified a small, influential beta group of employees. They spent time with this small group, building trust and allowing them to try the software in a controlled, low-stakes environment.
That's the tri-stage right there.
Yes. And most importantly, they didn't focus on how the CRM helped the executive team. They focused entirely on how the CRM solved the staff's immediate pain points.
They located the end user's incentive. They showed the beta group how the software automated their data entry, which saved them, say, 2 hours a week, which directly increased their billable hours and, consequently, their bonuses.
They engineered a micro-transformation.
Exactly.
And once that beta group experienced the financial benefit, they naturally, organically entered the reverse stage. They went back to their respective departments and started evangelizing the software to their peers.
Hey, you need to use this new system. It just saved me 3 hours of admin work.
Exactly. The software rollout wasn't coming from a threatening executive memo anymore. It was a peer-to-peer recommendation. The trust was transferred.
And within a few months, I assume the firm achieved near total adoption.
Yes. It proves that whether you are reverse engineering a $1 million ad campaign or trying to get your own accounting team to use a new database, the human brain demands the exact same sequence of validation.
It is unavoidable. You cannot cheat the behavioral sequence, which means the real work of a business is operationalizing that sequence.
And that operationalization is where we zoom in from the macro view of the hourglass to the micro view. Because if the marketing hourglass is the high-level map of the territory, the customer success track, the CST, is the turn-by-turn GPS system navigating the terrain of the post-purchase journey.
The customer success track is the engine of the bottom half of the hourglass. It is the specific, rigorous system a company builds to guarantee that the customer actually achieves the transformation they paid for.
Because if they don't achieve it...
The repeat and refer stages are permanently locked out.
So to build this track, the architecture demands we answer 5 elemental questions. And the first 2 are entirely about establishing a delta.
The gap between where a customer is right now and where they ultimately want to go. You can't guide someone if you don't know where they are starting.
Precisely. You have to define the maturity stages of your client base. You cannot treat a startup founder who just launched their first product identically to a seasoned CEO running a $10 million operation.
They are arriving at your doorstep with entirely different baseline realities, different anxieties, different resource constraints.
So the architecture breaks this journey down into 5 specific maturity stages, using a marketing agency as the foundational example. And we really need to dissect what happens inside each of these stages, because this is where the philosophy becomes a rigid operational standard. The 5 stages are foundation, level up, organize, stabilize, and scale. And for each stage, you must define 3 strict parameters.
The characteristics of the customer in that stage, the specific challenges keeping them trapped there, and the promise of what they will achieve by advancing.
Let's start at the beginning, the foundation stage.
The characteristics of a business in this stage are usually chaotic. Sales are driven entirely by the sheer willpower and personal networking of the founder.
Right.
They might have a website, but it generates 0 leads. Their messaging changes depending on who they are talking to.
Which leads to their challenges. They are trapped in the foundation stage because they believe marketing is this unpredictable dark art. They feel like social media is a waste of time. They have no idea where to allocate a tiny budget.
And they are overwhelmed by the technical complexity of SEO and digital infrastructure.
Knowing this, the business creates a specific promise for the foundation stage. And the text notes, the promise isn't, we will make you $1 million.
Right, that is too far away. It lacks credibility.
Exactly. The promise is, we will build an optimized digital footprint that converts traffic, establish a consistent brand message, and implement an automated system for capturing customer views.
It is a highly specific, achievable microtransformation that moves them to the next stage.
Which is the level up stage. Once the foundation is poured, the characteristics change.
Right.
Now, they have a functional website and some consistent messaging, but their challenge is that their efforts are entirely ad hoc.
Right. They write a blog post only when the founder feels inspired. They send an email newsletter only when they have a new product to push. There is no rhythm.
So the promise of the level up stage is the introduction of cadence and systems. The promise is, we will implement a 90-day editorial calendar, launch a lead capture mechanism to build an owned audience, and establish a predictable weekly rhythm for customer communication.
We are moving them from inspiration-driven marketing to system-driven marketing.
And as they achieve that, they graduate to the organized stage. Now, they're generating leads, but they hit a new wall. The characteristics here are usually siloed data.
They have an email list over here, a sales spreadsheet over there, and social media metrics in a third place.
The challenge is that they cannot attribute ROI. They don't know which half of their marketing is actually working.
So the promise of the organized stage is clarity and integration. We will implement a unified CRM, track the origin of every single lead, and provide a dashboard that shows exactly how much revenue every marketing dollar generates.
We are giving them the power of strategic visibility.
With visibility, they move to stabilize. The leads are flowing, the data is tracked, but the challenge is volatility. They might have a great quarter followed by a terrible one.
So the promise of stabilize is predictability. We will optimize the conversion rates of your existing funnels, implement recurring revenue models or retention strategies, and ensure that your cash flow is predictable month over month.
Which finally earns them the right to enter the scale stage. And note, this is where most businesses try to start, which is why they fail.
They want to scale the chaos.
Exactly. The characteristics of a scale stage business are predictable revenue and dialed-in systems. The challenge is that the founder is still the bottleneck for high-level strategic decisions, or they have saturated their current market.
So the ultimate promise of the scale stage is explosive, leveraged growth. We will completely remove the founder from the day-to-day marketing operations, identify adjacent markets for expansion, and scale your advertising spend with mathematical certainty.
By meticulously defining these 5 stages, you have created a diagnostic tool. When a new prospect walks in the door, you don't just pitch them a generic package. You diagnose them. You say, based on our analysis, you are currently stuck in the organized stage. You have leads, but no visibility. We are going to deploy our specific organized playbook to move you to stabilize.
The level of authority and trust that creates is immense because you are speaking to the exact reality of their operational pain. But I can hear the objection forming in the listener's mind right now.
Let's hear it.
They're looking at this massive architecture, 5 stages, diagnosing characteristics, engineering promises, and thinking, I sell a product. The credit card cleared. The money's in my bank account. Why on earth am I taking on the massive operational burden of managing their entire transformational journey across 5 stages?
This raises an important question, and it is the central thesis of sustainable business growth. The transaction is just a transfer of funds. It is not the delivery of value. If you sell someone a complex piece of software or a high-level consulting framework and you just hand it to them and walk away, the statistical probability is that they will fail to implement it correctly.
Because they'll get overwhelmed by the interface, or they won't train their staff, or they will just get busy and forget about it.
And if they fail to implement it, they don't blame themselves.
No, they blame you.
Exactly. They decide your product is defective or your methodology is flawed, which means they cancel their subscription, they demand a refund, and they definitely never reach the repeat or refer stages.
Your business becomes entirely dependent on top-of-funnel acquisition to replace the massive churn at the bottom.
The customer success track is a survival mechanism. It forces your business to take active, systemic responsibility for the customer's success because your future revenue is entirely tethered to their ability to achieve the promised transformation.
You are inextricably linked to their outcome, which means we have to dive into the absolute most granular, microscopic level of this architecture. How do we actually build the tracks?
Right, because a promise is just a philosophy until it is executed by an employee on a Tuesday afternoon.
How do we ensure the customer actually moves from foundation to level up? The architecture answers this with milestones and tasks.
This is where we remove all subjectivity from the business. To move a customer from one stage to the next, they must pass a series of milestones. And the absolute most critical rule of this framework is that milestones must be phrased as binary yes or no questions.
This is where businesses have to aggressively combat the urge to run on vibes.
Yes, the vibes. You see this constantly in agency environments or service businesses. The CEO asks an account manager, how are we doing with the Smith account? And the manager says, yeah, doing great. They seem happy. We're making progress.
That is a feeling. It is completely subjective, unquantifiable, and unscalable.
A vibe cannot be delegated. A vibe cannot be audited. If your success metrics are subjective, your quality control is non-existent.
Let's look at the difference. A terrible subjective milestone question is the client's website effective?
What does effective even mean?
Exactly. Does it mean it looks pretty? Does it mean it gets traffic? The developer will say yes, the copywriter will say no, and the client will be totally confused.
A strict binary milestone question is, does the client's website display flawlessly on all mobile device viewports?
Yes or no. There is no debate. It either renders correctly on an iPhone or it doesn't.
If the answer is yes, the client passes the milestone and advances. If the answer is no, it triggers a highly specific, predetermined list of tasks that your team must execute to fix the problem before the client is allowed to move forward.
Let's look at the actual punch list of tasks from the text for establishing a digital foundation. If the binary milestone is the core digital footprint established, and the answer is no, the task list isn't a vague instruction like do some SEO.
No, the task list is hyper-specific.
Task 1. Set up a domain-based email address so they stop using a Gmail account for business. Task 2. Install and configure the Yoast SEO plugin on their WordPress architecture. Task 3. Claim, verify, and brand their corporate profiles on Facebook and LinkedIn.
And we shouldn't gloss over the mechanics of a task like installing Yoast for SEO. It's not just a technical checkbox to make a developer happy. Search engine optimization is the ultimate digital referee for trust.
How so?
When your client eventually reaches the refer stage and their happy customer tells a friend about them, the very first thing that friend is going to do is Google the company name.
Of course.
If the SEO architecture isn't built, if the company doesn't dominate their own branded search results, that borrowed trust evaporates instantly. Every technical task is inextricably linked to the behavioral psychology of the hourglass.
It's all connected.
Yeah.
But mapping out 5 stages, establishing 10 milestones per stage, and assigning 5 micro tasks to every milestone. We are talking about generating hundreds of highly specific operational directives.
It's a lot.
It sounds like a logistical impossibility to build from scratch without just paralyzing the business. How do you avoid the overwhelm?
If you try to lock yourself in a boardroom for a month and theorize every possible task, you will absolutely paralyze the business. The architecture demands that you build this track incrementally in the wild.
In the wild.
Yes. You map the high-level stages and the core milestones, but you populate the task lists by documenting the work you are already doing for your best clients. When your developer fixes a mobile formatting issue, they document the exact 3 steps they took.
And that documentation becomes the task list for the milestone.
Exactly. The system builds itself through the friction of reality.
You are capturing the tribal knowledge of your team and codifying it. And it strikes me that this isn't even really a marketing framework anymore. You're essentially describing a master operations manual. You are taking the intuition and the genius of the founder, which is inherently unscalable, and hard-coding it into a machine.
That is the ultimate revelation of the customer success track. It is the blueprint for scale.
Because when a business relies on the founder's intuition to ensure clients succeed, that business can only grow as large as the founder's calendar allows.
It hits a hard ceiling of physical capacity. But when you externalize that genius into a binary checklist of milestones and tasks, you create an autonomous system.
You make the founder's brain delegatable. You can hire a junior account manager, hand them the customer success track, and say, do not guess. Do not operate on vibes. Just ensure every client can answer yes to these 20 binary questions.
The quality remains identical, but the capacity becomes infinite. Furthermore, you are building a highly valuable, sellable asset.
A sellable asset. Let's touch on that.
If a founder ever wants to exit, a buyer doesn't want to purchase a company that collapses the moment the founder leaves the building. A buyer pays a massive premium for a company that runs on a documented proprietary system that reliably generates successful customers and predictable referrals.
The CST isn't just about customer satisfaction. It is about enterprise value.
Precisely.
So as we pull all of these threads together, the core contrast is just striking. The traditional funnel is an exercise in brute force extraction. It's about shouting at people until they submit to a transaction.
But the marketing hourglass and the customer success track are an exercise in alignment. They combine a deep, profound understanding of human behavioral psychology with ruthless operational precision.
And the engine powering that alignment is, surprisingly, empathy.
Empathy operationalized into a checklist.
Exactly. When you force yourself to map every single microstep your customer takes, from their initial skeptical internet search when they're just trying to articulate their pain, through the dopamine crash of cognitive dissonance, all the way down to the specific technical SEO plugins required to ensure they are visible to the market.
You are forcing your business to view the world entirely through their eyes. You stop selling at people and you start scaling with them.
You align your financial incentives with their transformational success. If they win, you win. We have covered an immense amount of ground in this deep dive.
We really have.
We shattered the selfish geometry of the funnel, constructed the behavioral architecture of the hourglass, Analyze the neuroscience of buyer's remorse, built a diagnostic map of maturity stages, and translated all of it into a binary operational system for infinite scale. I want to sincerely thank you, the listener, for dedicating your time to exploring these complex, demanding, but ultimately revolutionary frameworks with us.
Implementing even a fraction of this architecture will fundamentally change the trajectory and stability of a business.
Absolutely. But before we go, I want to leave you with one final, deeply provocative thought to consider. We have just spent this entire time meticulously mapping out the exact operational track your customer must take to achieve ultimate success. But ask yourself this. If you now possess a documented, proven track, if you know precisely what an ideal successful customer looks like and how they must behave to achieve a result, how much time, money, and emotional energy are you currently wasting on the clients who absolutely refuse to stay on the track?
The ones who bypass milestones, demand constant discounts, and drain your operational resources.
Exactly. Next time, we might just have to explore the controversial idea that aggressively firing your worst customers could actually be the single most profitable growth strategy in your entire arsenal. Until then, keep diving deep.
What you just listened was the beginning of a full audio, way longer, explaining every single chapter of the book. If you would like to keep listening to the end and access to the full audio, you can access it with the link down below in the description and in the pinned comment.